Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Friday. One more sleep till Super Sports Saturday here in Peg City tomorrow with the Jets and Stars at 2. The very hot Jets and Stars at 2. And then the Winnipeg Blue Bombers look to book a ticket to Hamilton for the Grey Cup at 5:30 at IG Field against the British Columbia Lions. Welcome to WST Daily, gang. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. And we got a banger today. Lots on the Bombers and Lions tomorrow. We're going to sort of get into that in the first hour of the program after talking about last night's big win and a couple other games around the National Hockey League probably. And then Kenny Wiebe's going to join us. Jets practice today, getting ready for the matinee tomorrow. So we'll have the latest on the club. Post skate today down at Canada Life Center. Teddy Wyman is going to jump on, and we'll also head out to IG Field and welcome in Ed Tait from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for a little bit of an update. We do have news on the roster, and no good news on Dalton Schoen. He's not on the roster. He will not play in the Western Final. And I don't know whether we got much clarity when it came to, listen, I think we're all expecting Nick Dembski to play, Rasheed Bailey to play, but they have been put on the roster as game time decisions, which means that they can be taken off the roster up to 30 minutes before the game and replaced if they can't go. So, listen, fingers crossed that Dembski and Bailey can be out there, especially without Dalton Schoen in the lineup. But we'll get to that with Ed a little bit later on and hook up with Ted Wyman and get his thoughts on the matchup between the Bombers and Lions tomorrow for a trip to the Grey Cup. And, of course, as soon as we get Remis in here, we'll talk about another big, impressive win for the Winnipeg Jets last night at home, kicking off the homestand, beating the Nashville Predators the way they did last night, and a look ahead to tomorrow against the Dallas Stars. Just before we bring Remo in, what's up, everybody in chat? Great to see you all. Of course, we'll do marbles a little later on, and Hacksaw will jump on for a little NFL notebook. Might have to ask Hacksaw about what's happening in Northern Alberta right now after the Oilers lost to the Sharks last night, which is basically taking over most of the chat right now. Anyways, we'll get to all of that coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, marbles a little later on with a couple qualifying spots for that Linden jersey and our Prairie Naturals package, which will be given away in a special marble race on the 30th for the final day of Men's Health Month. But a big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen every day. Of course, our friends at Coolbet just banged out the lock shop over on Edmonton Sports Talk with Pat and Jake as Dusty is on his way here to call the game tomorrow. Our friends at Princess Auto, ready to welcome Bomber fans, 3:30 p.m. The doors open for the tailgate tomorrow. Of course, our friends at the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Nick and Nicky DQ, F Apparel, Wallace and Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershop, and plenty of fodder for our Why Not question of the day today for our friends at Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Get in here, Remo. Let's go. It's Friday. How are you?
I'm in a great mood. I don't know, am I happier about the Jets' win last night or the Oilers' loss to the San Jose Sharks? I know the Jets game against Nashville was great, but I've seen a lot of people, I think more people are fired up with this Oilers loss. The worst team in the NHL right now in Edmonton, after many picking them to win the Stanley Cup. I don't know, but here we are excited for Super Saturday. Bombers, Lions, that's exciting for tomorrow. Disappointing, although not surprising that Dalton Schoen not available. We'll wait and we'll cross our fingers until 30 minutes before game time for Dembski and Bailey, although Ted, who's coming up, he expects them to be in. But yeah, this is a fun day, Huss. I think people are starting to realize, hey, you know what, this Winnipeg Jets team, they're actually pretty good, and they're very consistent. And I know they're practicing today. And oh, guess what? The lines are exactly the same, like they've been for, I don't know, the last 3 weeks. So it's good day. It's a nice little Friday here.
It is. And normally, if we weren't heading into one of the biggest, maybe the biggest sports day of the year here in Winnipeg with these two games tomorrow. We probably would have gotten Tommy Gazzola or one of the fellas on from EST to talk about it. But just before we dive into the Jets, that was absolutely stunning last night. And poor Jay Woodcroft looked like a dead man walking, along with Dave Manson off the ice after the unthinkable happened. The Oilers lost to the San Jose Sharks. And I know T. Will's in chat. I'm sure he's doing a victory lap right now because he said he was on it yesterday. I didn't have the stones to pick the Sharks. Stayed away from that game, but we did bang out our partner parlay again. Man, we've had an unbelievable week in the lock shop with their Coolbet, so we'll hit on that a little bit later on. But Remis, inconceivable where the Edmonton Oilers are right now after that loss to the Sharks. And there has not been a firing yet. I know many people thought they'd wake up and Woodcroft would be done. That is not the case. But there you have it, 2-9-1. And maybe Dusty tweeted this out yesterday or late last night or this morning. Now through 12 games, the Oilers have the same amount of wins as the Edmonton Elks did after 12 games, and they started their season 0-9.
That's so bad. And look at their goal differential. They're -19. That's second worst in the league. They can't score. They can't get a save. They can't defend. I didn't bet on the Sharks, but I didn't take Edmonton. I played DraftKings, and I didn't take Edmonton, and everyone else did. They were very popular. And I looked at their lines, and I'm like, Leon Draisaitl, they split up McDavid and Draisaitl. Now they put them together, but Draisaitl was playing with a Warren Fogle and some other guy who I don't know how they expected them to score. Now, I guess you look at some of their expected goals and some of the shot attempts numbers. I mean, they keep out shooting, but the puck's not going in, and I think they keep trying these fancy plays, and it's not working, and they make a mistake, and boom, it's in the back of the net. And it was fascinating to watch last night. Not only the game and the lack of urgency until the final the final minutes of the third period, but the response. I mean, so many people in our chat went into the Edmonton Sports Talk chat.
Gazzola had over 1,000 people live in the post game, and I'm looking at the chat, and I'm like, WST, WST, WST. Hey, it's like a car crash. You just can't keep your eyes off of it right now. And listen, I jokingly, but not really, said to Iwanek when we were coming in for the lock shop that this is the best thing that could have possibly happened to those guys just starting up. Now, they are worried that people just tune out because the season feels lost. It's still 12 games in. I did check Money Puck today, and they still have the Oilers at 55% to make the playoffs. But I mean, they're going to be working for 70 games to try to sneak into a wild card. And that is not what anybody had laid out for Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the team up in Northern Alberta. But anyways, enough on the Oilers, because we've got good news to talk about, and that is the Winnipeg Jets continue to roll. Remember on the show last week, 1 week ago today, I talked about what a huge week this was coming up for the Winnipeg Jets with all these head-to-head matchups in the Central Division. And a good week would put them in a great spot. A bad week would, really compound their spot, not only when it comes to the playoff seeding, a playoff spot, but also, giving some life to teams. They beat Arizona in that great comeback win after falling down 2-0 on Saturday, and then played two of their best, most complete, consistent games of the year in the win against St. Louis, and they did it again last night. And, it was the Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor show with the hat trick for KFC, an absolutely filthy second goal that everyone was on their feet for in the stands last night. LB getting his first win of the season. Adam Lowry dropping the gloves twice in the first period. Slamberg blocking everything that was shot towards Laurent Brossoit, selling out and doing his part. I mean, just another great team win for the Winnipeg Jets. And a lot of the positive storylines around this team that we've been talking about are being repeated by Winnipeg. And I can tell you, talking to fans at the game last night and afterwards, this is an excited fan base, and this is a team, I think, that's earning that level of excitement, and increasing trust from fans, knowing what they're going to get from this team, a professional workmanlike effort, game in and game out, and it's turning into points in the standings.
Yeah, I think in past versions of the Winnipeg Jets, some games they'd show up and look like a first-place team, and other games they would not, and that hasn't been the case at all this year. They've played the same game. I think it was Mason Appleton who said, after one of the other games, we've had like 2 or 3 bad periods, and I would agree with that. I mean, they've been so good, so consistent. It's come from all the lines. You had Mason Appleton starting off the scoring yesterday. That line we talked about, so much, and then until Tuesday's game, we're like, where's this top line been? And 2 games in a row, some absurd numbers, and Kyle Connor scoring 3 goals, adding an assist. Mark Scheifele tying a franchise record that Alex Iafallo tied the game before with 4 assists, and Iafallo chipping in with 2 assists of his own. I mean, Cole Perfetti, we talked about him. He's now scored in back-to-back games and quietly having a very strong season. And, we mentioned special team as well. The Jets 5 for 5 on the penalty kill, which had struggled, and the power play. They talked about it after the game, how, hey, the power play is not doing so good. Maybe we should put someone in front of the net. And, who's in front of the net? By all alone. Cole Perfetti scoring the 4th goal of the game for the Jets. And as you mentioned, Dylan Sandberg setting a career-high 9 block shots, putting his body on the line for the team. It was impressive to watch. They look like they're having fun. They've talked about coming together, and you can certainly see that. And it looked like a great atmosphere at Canada Life Center last night on Thursday.
It was, and I know they did a promo for, I believe, Moose season ticket holders. So there were a bunch. I mean, like I was in 316 last night, and listen, there was still a few pockets on the other side of the upper bowl. I know the crowd was over 12,000, but it was a fun atmosphere in the upper bowl last night where I was at, and listen, as I say, people are. Even the most disgruntled fans from the last few years, I think that, kind of came into this season with a real wait-and-see attitude, are being turned into believers. And not necessarily like, oh, this team's going to go win the cup. But, man, it's easy to get behind a team, and it's easy to buy tickets and support a team that is going to come out, work their asses off every night, doing the things that you need to win hockey games, and results will follow. I'm just looking at some of the comments in the chat right now. I mean, the guy says, so enjoyable to have a team that is working together and playing for each other. Get her done. Those back checks from Scheif and Connor. It's your boy Bruce. That second KFC goal was more filthy than his stash. Great line. Love the 3-piece from KFC last night. And more and more from the same right now. So I'll tell you what. I mean, it was just, I mean, all around a great game for the Winnipeg Jets. And I mean, listen, it's easy to talk about Scheifele with the 4 assists and Kyle Connor's hat tricks, and I mean all the numbers. I still want to talk about Adam Lowry's first period, Remis. If there was any worry that the team was going to come out flat, the old first game on the homestand after being on the road, all those cliches that sometimes, do show themselves to be true. The Jets weren't having any of that. And we heard from Paul and Scott Arniel talking about, their level that's expected night in and night out. And Adam Lowry leads the way every single night. He was everywhere in the first period. He had 2 minutes and 35 seconds of ice time in the first period, 3 hits, an assist, and ended up dropping the gloves twice. The only way it could have been better was that the Jets had scored on that power play that they earned by the instigator on the Nashville player that engaged Lowry while he was facing one of the other guys on the Preds that he had just hit. Cannot say enough about what Lowry's showing night in and night out. We've talked a lot about the offense, but he's doing it in so many different ways. He is leading by example, and the rest of this team is following along and leading themselves. And that was just a perfect example of what they're getting from 1 to 12. in the forward group, 1-6 at the blue line, and even Laurent Brossoit, who had, I think, a little bit of a shaky first couple starts, had a couple go in, but on him, Philip Forsberg, an absolute legit sniper. He gets a much-needed win right now. So everyone was leaving the building happy last night after that win, and now we're ready to start off tomorrow, hopefully on a winning note before heading down to IG Field and seeing the Bombers versus the Lions in the main event. Yeah,
I know Adam Lowry's the guy who stands up for teammates and drops the gloves, but he's been so good offensively, and we've talked about that line. I'm watching the game like, no, Adam, they need you on the ice. They need you scoring goals. They need you doing no-look between the legs, back passes on assist to Mason Appleton, like the one in the first period. But, you like to see him stand up for Rasmus Kupari there on that first fight. And Mason Appleton talked at intermission with Kevin Sawyer did the interview, actually. That one saying how much they appreciated his efforts, and it certainly got them going. But that second fight, Lowry lays a very clean but hard. Yeah, there was nothing malicious there. And Cole Smith went in from Brainerd, Minnesota, and dropped the gloves with Lowry. And Lowry said, I couldn't even get my own gloves off, but I think the refs got it right, calling, look, it's going to give the Jets a power play there, and then sure, get into a fight. So, I mean, certainly you don't see that too often, a guy fighting twice in one period while managing to find time to have an assist as well. So nice to see that from the captain and that line continuing. I will say that we talked about Lozon, us picking Lowry up after he fell. Nice respect there. We've seen Kachuk bros see other guys fall and just start popping them in the face while they're defenseless. So some nice respect from the two guys there.
No doubt about it. We'll hear that in a second. I got to give a shout out in the chat to VR Montenegro. VR, a loyal lock shopper, and we've had a lot of nice runs this week on the lock shop. But VR saying, yo, WST, I have some words for all of you coming on to crap on the Oilers postgame last night on Edmonton Sports Talk. And then he followed it up by, they're going to lose Saturday, so come on by for more fun. VR, great to see you hanging out with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and shout out to everyone that jumped on over from EST after the lock shop earlier. Listen, as I say, we're really going to dive into this Bomber game with Ed Tait and Ted Wyman coming up in just a couple minutes. But let's get a little bit of post-game reaction from yesterday. A huge game for the Winnipeg Jets, and once again, so many individuals contributing to the win. But Scott Arniel spoke afterwards and talked about creating offense from defense and the quick transition and the speed that the Winnipeg Jets are playing right now. Here's what the coach had to say on that.
The hard work that we're doing when we don't have the puck creates those chances, or creates that puck possession that we're doing a great job of having. And like I said to you, that pressure might be in the offensive zone, it might be through the neutral zone coming back, or it's our D zone coverage. And when we close fast and when we take away, I know it's an old adage, time and space, but when we get after people quickly, then our transition comes from a lot of that stuff. And again, there's some really good examples of us pouring back and kind of protecting the guts of the ice and creating the opportunities, the turnovers, and then going the other way.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, and most notably, Scheifele's line last night. I mean, Mark, again, we talked about the gaff on Saturday and how he was sort of picked up by his teammates, and Nino and the Lowry line and Brendan Dillon, of course, kind of completely turning that game around. He's been phenomenal over these last couple games, and they are getting the results. But a big part of it, as Arnie just said, starts in the defensive zone. And here's a little bit more on Arniel on Scheifele's line with the strong two-way game that they showed last night.
They've been doing it from the start. I think that, you can't discredit that they have been. It's a big thing that Scheif has talked about. He wants to be on the ice against the other team top players, and he has to do those things. KC, the same thing. They want that challenge, and they know that if they're going to do it, they got to be good and hard at when they don't have the puck. And there's been numerous times where they've been on video along with other guys from different lines of doing exactly that, pouring back from behind and creating turnovers, popping sticks. We always talk it's never too late to come back and go the distance type thing, and we've seen it all year long. I think now we're really seeing the reward from it because we're turning it. We were good at tracking and we were getting good at the turnovers, but now we're getting on the transition part of it. Now we're catching teams with 2, sometimes 3 guys caught down low, and it's creating odd man situations for us the other way.
All right, so some nice praise for 55 and 81, who are all over the score sheet, but also very impactful in creating those opportunities by a strong two-way game. One more from Arneal, and lost in all the scoring and the highlight reel goals and the goal songs was Dylan Sandberg putting his body on the line, a career-high 9 blocks last night. The coach showed some appreciation for 54's dedication last night.
Yeah, I mean, we needed as much as the power play going, our PK needed a boost, and it was a big night for everybody that way. And he was unbelievable. Like some of those shots that he blocked, obviously, it was Forsberg. I think 3 times came down that flank and fired him, and he's got a heavy shot. But that's part of what penalty killing is. It's that sacrifice that you have to do. And Sammy's always been a shot blocker, and tonight he took it to the next step.
All right, so there's Scott Arneal. Now, we mentioned Adam Lowry's first period. I mean, that's what everyone was talking about in the concourse and in the bar in the first intermission. Lowry dropped them early and then didn't have much choice to get in another one after the instigation after a couple of big hits on the same shift. Lowry talked afterwards and discussed dropping his gloves twice in the first 20.
The first one, I kind of, Coops goes down in the corner. I don't really see the contact, just that he goes down. And so I asked Lozon to fight, and, pretty respectful by him to let me up kind of right off the bat. And, so I really appreciate that. Certainly didn't have to, and he could have teed off. And then the second one, I think, he's just sticking up. That's a young guy, new guy in the lineup. And, I would have appreciated if I could have got my gloves off, but it's that's what happens. You play hard and things like that happen. I don't think I anticipate fighting twice in a period too often.
Yeah, a little bit of Adam Lowry, and his calm demeanor belies what he's doing on the ice right now. But it's always funny, Remis, when you hear guys like thank the guy that they're trying to put their fist through a guy's head for the respect that they showed in the fight. But it was an appropriate comment because there was, if you can call it, a little bit of sportsmanship, if you will, in that first dust-up. Yeah,
we've all seen these videos where the guys are mic'd up. It's like, hey, man, you want to fight? And they're like, yeah, let's go. And and then they're like shaking hands and doing it. And I think there is that respect. But at the same time, yes, you are trying to put your fist into another man's face. And I mean, I don't know, you can kind of, I guess, separate the punching and the head part from, before and after. So Lowry, very, very calm, very measured, and just showing why he was such a great choice to be captain of the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, here's one more. And it was a topic we hit a week ago, a big, big week for the team inside the division. They've rattled off 3 wins and now move up a weight class, if you will, against the Dallas Stars tomorrow afternoon at 2. This is 8, Remis. This is Lowry on the team's record in the Central Division in these 3 straight wins.
The Central Division, it's so complete top to bottom. There's no easy nights, and stylistically, every team plays different, but kind of we're so familiar with every team that there's certain game plans against the different teams, and we know how critical the points are, and coming like down the stretch last year, how tight the races were. So anytime you can bank points against your division, it's huge.
All right, so there's the captain leading the way for the Winnipeg Jets. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Ken Wiebe's going to join us probably just after 2. So in about half an hour or so, a little longer than that, and we'll get the latest on the club and tee up tomorrow, and obviously gets Ken's thoughts on the Bombers. But we have to get to the Bombers. Huge game. The anticipation has been building throughout the week. Ed Tait in about 20 minutes, and first up we're going to go to Ted Wyman. But before that, do want to thank everyone that's donated so far to Team WST for Movember, along with our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. Check the link yesterday, and we were already over $1,000. So thank you to everyone that has made a donation, and shout out to the guys. Maybe around Marbles, we'll crank out a couple of update photos from some of Team WST. If you're with us on YouTube, you can click that QR code, which will take you over, raising very important funds for men's health issues, mental health, and more during Men's Health Month, which of course is this month in November. And of course, Modern Man supporting this as well. Now, 8 locations in Winnipeg. So there's one near you, including 2 new ones at Pembina and Plessy Road. And of course, they've got you covered with everything at Modern Man. Haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Make an appointment or book your look via modernmanbarber.com. And don't forget, if you are growing a stash this month, you can win some great prizes from Modern Man. Just snap a selfie of yourself in front of any of the Modern Man locations. Throw it on Instagram. Tag us, tag Modern Man Barbershops for a chance to win a great package at the end of the month. Our friends at Aquatech are so busy right now. I mean, listen, getting ready for pool season next year as the leaders in above ground and in-ground pools. Can help you that if you're planning for 2024. But right now, really focusing in on their home renovation business, because whole home renos start with Aquatech, with thousands of renovations as their foundation. Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And hey, man, listen, it's not going to be as cold as I think many people expected tomorrow. But we know there'll be some batteries out in the parking lot getting people ready for the big game with some tailgating. But right now, of course, we are preparing for winter. Manitoba Battery continues their winter-ready sale right now with $10 off their already lowest prices in the game when it comes to batteries. Now is the time to get ready for winter, folks. The cold is coming. We know it. Is your car ready for it? That's what you need to know. If you need a new battery for your car or truck, get the best prices in town at Manitoba Battery, beating the pants off the big box stores. And the best service in town as well is they'll deliver it to you for free anywhere in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. So no excuses to wait until you're on the side of the road making a phone call. Go to manitobabattery.com for all your battery needs, or give them a phone call at 783-8787. Donnie's great staff will help you out as well. If you do want a free battery test to see where you're at, pop by and see them in store at 1026 Logan Avenue. And hey, just before we talk about the game tomorrow, everyone, this is going to be a long one, so pace yourselves, folks. But I know there'll be quite a bit of enjoying Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey in the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canadian Club tomorrow at the game. Of course, Canadian Club behind the Bombers all the way, and will probably be fueling quite a few fans at IG Field tomorrow. You can find the entire Canadian Club family and Beam Suntory family of spirits everywhere at IG Field. And listen, if you're thinking about maybe changing it up from beer and you haven't already, try those delicious CC and gingers available in cans at the stadium tomorrow. And again, Canadian Club available, all their great products at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And next time you're at your beer store, check out, keep your eye on the lookout for those CC and gingers as well. And as always, but especially tomorrow for such a big day and a long day, make it a great one, make it a safe one, and always enjoy responsibly. All right, Eddie Tait coming up in about 20 minutes. Right now, though, let's welcome in Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun for a look at tomorrow's West Final. Teddy, we're just about there. You've been living at IG Field all week. There have been closed practices, but what's the vibe around the defending Western Division champions before this big one, 5:30 tomorrow?
Well, you made a good point. It has been there's been a lot of availabilities with this team since the last time they played a game. They practiced twice in the off week when they had a bye because they earned it by getting themselves to the West Final, and then this week there's been practices every day, and it just kind of there's a lot of things to spread out. There's been not a ton of news. I mean, we've been certainly watching the situation with the receiving core because Nick Dembski was not practicing early in the week. Rashid Bailey was not practicing early in the week. On Thursday, those two guys did get out and run around. It was a close practice, so Mike O'Shea is the one who told us that they got out and ran around, which, in my mind kind of suggests they're tracking towards playing in that game. And that's going to be big because if the Bombers don't have Dalton Schoen, that's a big storyline, but it sure doesn't seem like Schoen is ready to come back at this point. You wouldn't want to be down more than one receiver. This is a very dynamic receiving core, but BC has a very dynamic receiving core as well. And I think it's really going to be important for the Bombers to have the best possible lineup out there, because I don't think this is a cakewalk for Winnipeg by any means. It's going to be close. I think I got a lot in there, Huss, on a lot of different subjects right off of the first question. But the truth is, that's the number one storyline of this to me, that this is going to be a heavyweight bout between two really good football teams.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking about it all week long here in Winnipeg. I've been on some shows in Vancouver talking about both teams. And, I mean, man, we all remember the season series. I mean, BC coming in and laying the smackdown early on. That was, I think, a big wake-up call for the Bombers. The Winnipeg returning the favor, dropping a 50 burger on the then Donut Boys. And then a game that, I mean, honestly, still stands above just about every regular season game for the last number of seasons, considering what was on the line and how great of a game it was in the Bombers' win in BC, which is the reason why this game is here. But Ted, when and I had a great conversation with Farhan earlier this week, and it does seem like there's multiple paths to victory for the Bombers. The Bombers can do it with Zach Collaros. I mean, they can air it out all day if you want, but they also have this running game that is built for IG Field in the middle of November, and that is not something that the BC Lions are really bringing to the table, which puts a ton of pressure on Vernon Adams. And at the same time, I think on the Winnipeg side of things, the Bomber defense and their ability to start well, that has not been something that has happened all year long. To me, crucially important, because if the Bombers can put themselves in a situation where they can bludgeon the BC defensive line throughout the game and then lean on Brady Oliveira in the fourth quarter as they've done all year long, I mean, that's the ideal situation for Winnipeg. That doesn't necessarily happen at all if the Bombers get down early. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it sounds like a recipe for success that you just put out there. Now, obviously, they didn't have a slow start in the game against BC on August 4th here in Winnipeg. That was the game where they absolutely went off. Everything that Collaros threw got caught for a long bomb touchdown. So that's the kind of start that you'd think they'd be looking for here again. But you're right. I mean, the power game, the running game that Winnipeg wants to use to grind out a win doesn't work as well if you fall behind. Now, they've shown an ability to win in any way this year. That's the thing that really stands out to me about their season. They have been down and had poor first halves and come back with great second halves and won. And they've also run the table all the way through a game. They've, and really the one game that stands out more than any is the one you already mentioned, which was the game in BC where they got pushed around the entire first half, did all the pushing in the second half. There was no, the BC Lions really couldn't do much of anything. And then Winnipeg really exercised their will in overtime and won it. And again, that's just another way that this team has shown that they can win, that there's never any panic, that they can, even if things just aren't working, and it might even go into the third quarter, they still keep going at it and make it work. And I think that's what comes from having real leaders like Zach Collaros at quarterback, Adam Bighill at linebacker, Willie Jefferson, the guys on their offensive line, even Nick Dembski. Brady Oliveira is starting to become a veteran now in this league after a few years. When you build a lineup like you have around these kind of veterans, you don't panic, and you can figure out ways to win games no matter how they start. And if you look back the last couple of West Finals at IG Field even, that has been the case where the Bombers didn't necessarily start great. And they certainly didn't play very well against the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 2021. In fact, nearly threw that game away with interceptions and fumbles, but they still came back and found a way. And that's been the hallmark of this team. And I really think those are the kind of intangibles that mean something. When you look at these two teams being as evenly matched as they are, I think Winnipeg gets the edge in so many of the situations because of things like being on their home field, being more accustomed to playing in cooler weather, having a great crowd behind them that really makes it difficult on the opposing offense, and being such a veteran squad.
Vernon Adams looked great in the win over Calgary last week, and
Great.
that's the Vernon Adams that they are going to need. And again, not in the dome. Conditions will be different. I mean, the crowd's going to be a factor and all that. But when you look at BC's path to victory, I mean, does it start and end with a monster game from Vernon Adams?
I thought I was watching your boy Patrick Mahomes for a while in that game. I got to tell you, Huss. I mean, the way he played, the way he was running the football, scoring touchdowns. He had 3 on the ground, zipping the passes around and making things happen. That was a great performance. That was one of the best quarterback performances I've seen in a long time. And it's the kind of thing with VA that in a lot of ways I think speaks to his whole career. He can be a bit of an up and down kind of guy. He can have those incredible games, but can he put together a few of them in a row? And that's the question for me. Is VA going to be able to come into Winnipeg and put in a full 60 minutes and absolutely dominate all the way through well enough to beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? That was the Calgary Stampeders that he did that against. And they're not the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're a team that had 8 fewer wins than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this season. Winnipeg is a much, much better team. And the stats back it up across the board. The Bombers are number 1 in dozens of categories on both offense and defense. So it's going to be much harder for Vernon Adams. And you wonder, does it even get into his head? Can I do it again? Can I go out there and do it again? And again, I even want to point out the October 6th game in Vancouver, which we already talked about, the one that went to overtime. Vernon Adams looked absolutely amazing in the first half of that game. And you thought, this guy, if he's playing like this, the Bombers have no chance of winning this game. Well, they completely neutralized him in the second half. He did almost nothing, and the Bombers came back to win. So even within the game, you might see that good VA and that bad VA. And obviously, it's going to matter what the Bombers do to make sure that it's a lot more of the bad VA than the good VA.
Well, and I mean, there's some it's the usual suspects that are going to be tasked with keeping him to a minimum. I know you spoke with Jackson Jeffcoat, and I mean, Adam Bighill, an unqualified leader of this defense. What have the fellas on the defensive side of the football had to say this week in your conversations as it pertains to the challenge of limiting VA, but also something that has hurt the Bombers at times, over pursuing, letting mobile quarterbacks get out of the pocket and run for big chunks of yardage?
Yeah, they did do that, and I feel like they did that in games where it kind of snuck up on them. You know, the Dustin Crum game, and particularly in Ottawa, it's like they didn't even know anything about this guy that they were facing, and they didn't realize that he had that kind of escapability, and he was able to really punish them with it. And we did see that with other guys later on in the season as well, that you didn't know as well. They really know Vernon Adams. They know what he brings to the table. I'm sure that they've game planned for him many times. He's had some really good games against Winnipeg. Even going back to his days in Montreal, he had some incredible games against Winnipeg. So they know this guy well. They know that the key is going to be making him as one-dimensional as possible. Now, he had 413 passing yards and 54 rushing yards in this last game. Like I said, that's a bit Mahomes-esque. But he, you know, if you can make sure that only one of those two things is where his, his basic focus lies. If he's not thinking he's going to be able to escape, get away, pick up those chunks, and he's got to throw the football. Well, Winnipeg's got a pretty good defense as well, and they've got some ball hawks back there. So, and again, a knock on VA, of course, is that sometimes his ball security isn't the greatest. He led the league in interceptions with 18 this season. So, to me, it's about making sure that you're taking away his ability to escape. He hasn't always done that all season either. He's been more in the pocket than he has in years past. He really kind of spread that out more in this last game against Calgary. You can't let him do both, because if he puts up those kind of numbers, 500 yards of offense by himself, I don't see BC being on the losing end.
We spent so much time talking about Brady Oliveira, and justifiably so. He's the MOP for the Bombers and the Western Division. We'll find out whether it's the entire league next week in Hamilton. But lost in that sometimes is the big boys up front that are the foundation of winning football in the Bomber offensive line. I know you talked with Patty Neufeld, who, for my money, could have been right there being the Bomber nominee for the top offensive lineman this year. How would you describe the level of excitement about the big boys up front over the challenge facing them on Saturday and the fruits if they can get it done?
It's funny that you say that because I could really sense that excitement with Patty Neufeld, just how much it means to him just to be able to come into this situation, to play a West Final, a game that has so much on the line, to play it at home, to play it in front of these fans, to play it in cold weather with the sleeves exposed. You just get the sense that he loves that. Brady Oliveira loves it too. Stanley Bryant loves it. Jamarcus Hardrick loves it. Chris Kolonkowski loves it. Jeff Gray loves it. They live for this kind of stuff. And Winnipeg has been by far the best rushing attack in the CFL this season, not even close. And they are number 1 in the league. The BC Lions are number 9 in the league. If there's one big on-the-field advantage, it's right there. There's absolutely no question about it. Zach Collaros can also sling that ball around, and he's going to pick up, if he's on, he can have, a 400-yard game, no problem, too. But I do think those guys in the trenches live for this kind of situation and expect to be able to get the job done. I don't think BC's rush defense has been good enough this year, and Winnipeg will look to exploit that repeatedly in this game.
I had to laugh. I heard that the Aussie, Jameson Sheehan's folks are coming in to see him play pro football for the first time. They're going to be in for a shock, I'm sure, when they get to Winnipeg. Although, let's face it, this isn't going to be like the Winnipeg-Saskatchewan game a few years ago. But he's a real asset, I think, in this game to the Bombers. The one thing he has shown is his versatility of different kicks. He would be a guy that he's got a lot of clubs in his bag, as I like to say. When you look at the special teams overall, 2 elite kickers. Sean White's had a historically great season. Castillo's been awesome, and if there was one takeaway that I had from the final meaningless game in Calgary was that Sergio Castillo was ready to go in Winnipeg in November, considering the conditions. But when you look at special teams, we don't talk always enough about special teams. It's such a big part of the 3-down game. Is there an advantage on one side or the other, and is there an aspect or a player on special teams on either side that you're looking at to be particularly impactful?
Well, I just did today, and I've sent in the story. I don't know if it's available yet online, but I did write about where each team has the edge in this game. And I gave Winnipeg the edge on offense. I gave Winnipeg the edge on defense. And I gave Winnipeg the edge in terms of the intangibles because they're playing in front of their home crowd. They're playing on their own field where they're 26-2 over the last 3 years, including playoffs. And they're better in cold weather and all those kind of things. But when it comes to special teams, I gave the edge to the BC Lions. And I think that there's no other way to look at it. For one thing, Sean White has been just a little bit better than Sergio Castillo. There's no doubt about it. Stefan Flintoff, the punters, had a bit better numbers than Jamison Sheehan, although I think that's very even. And the kick returners, Janarian Grant and Terry Williams, are both excellent. What the problem for the Bombers to me is that their kick coverage has not been good this season. They're 8th in punt returns on kick coverage, and they are 8th in kickoff returns on kick coverage. And I think that is where BC does have a bit of an advantage. No doubt Winnipeg has the game breaker in Janarian Grant, so obviously he can make that whole theory look silly in one return because he's just that good. But Winnipeg's kick coverage has to be better. They have to make sure that the Lions aren't getting good field position all day long, and it hasn't happened all the time this season. There's been a lot of times where the opposition had better return game, and it left the Bombers in a tough position. So I do think that's going to be a really important part of this game. I imagine, in my mind, Castillo and White are really equally good. I do think White's had a better season, but I don't really see it coming down to either. I don't expect either of those guys to miss in clutch situations. They've just been too good. So, and I do like the way Sheehan kicks in terms of the cold weather, because he's such a directional kicker. And as you said, he's got so many clubs in his bag. he's really good at getting it to the sideline and making it tough for a team to get returns. So I think he's going to be a key part of this if he gets any chances to punt, because half the games this season, the Bombers just didn't give him any chances.
Well, that would be fine. That would be fine.
Yeah,
Mr. and Mrs. Sheehan, watch your boy sit there with his teammates on the sideline. We don't need him today. That's the best case scenario, and I'm sure they would be just fine with that. Ted, before we go, we're always talking about the usual suspects. We know the star players, the guys that have been here for a long time. Is there a player on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that we haven't talked about that you think will be in a position to be an X factor that people might not think about, or a guy that, maybe be a real unsung hero, but someone that they desperately need to have a big game that maybe is off the radar of the average fan?
I don't think I got one off the radar for you, but I'll throw a name at you. Kenny Lawler. I think Kenny Lawler is the most important player for the Bombers in this game, and I'll tell you why. It's Dalton Schoen's probably not playing, and he has been their number one target, their number one touchdown guy, everything. Kenny Lawler was brought here as a free agent, high-priced, to come in and be their number one guy, and now he clearly is. This is his chance. We know Dembski's been banged up. We know Rasheed Bailey's been banged up. Kenny Lawler loves playing against the BC Lions as well. He has 297 yards in 2 games against the Lions this season. He had a 221 yard against them back in 2021. He has a chip on his shoulder when it comes to playing that team anyway, because they once, something happened there in terms of how he got released. He wasn't very happy about it. But I really do think if the Bombers' passing attack is going to be as efficient as they'd like it to be, Kenny Lawler's probably going to be up there in the 170, 180 yard territory. And what they need is for him to go up and get every ball that's thrown his way, to come back to footballs, and to beat his man. And I think he's the guy to do it. He gets up for big games. He's won 2 Grey Cups with the Bombers. He's played in these West Finals before. And he's made some amazing plays. If you think back to 2021 against Saskatchewan, he made a catch that I can barely believe still today. So there's the guy that I think is going to be the big X factor for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And otherwise, they're so good in so many areas. This is just an excellent football team. But you still need to execute. You still need the big plays. And that's why a guy like Kenny Lawler is so important.
I imagine for folks getting ready for the big game tomorrow, they can dive into plenty of pregame coverage with you and the Sun team.
Oh, you bet. And actually, I wanted to tell you a funny story from Thursday. We were, hanging around in the media room, and there's 5 guys there with their phones, and everybody's looking at their weather apps. We came up with 5 different temperatures and 5 different low temperatures.
What was the consensus?
Well, I heard anywhere from +2 to -3. There was a low of -7 in there. It's pretty impressive that all these weather apps have different takes on it. But no matter what, I don't think the weather is going to be that huge of a factor. I would be writing more about that this week. There's absolutely no doubt. But one thing I wanted to point out, in the Friday paper, we've got a tale of the Tait that gives you all the stats up and down the entire roster. Some of the top performers, a look at the history between these two teams this season and in the playoffs. And then I mentioned before the story about the edge that each team has, and a look at some game breakers, which I think is going to be it's always an interesting one when you take a look at which guys you think might be the most important in the game. So, yeah, and, Paul Friesen will be chiming in. We'll have lots.
Well, the Bombers will be there. The Lions will be there. The fans are definitely going to be there. And I know the entire Winnipeg Sun team will be there. Teddy, have a great one. And fingers crossed, the whole gang is in Hamilton next week, including the blue and gold. Have a great one. Thanks so much. And I can't wait to read all about it in the Winnipeg Sun.
All right. Enjoy the weekend, Huss.
All right, great stuff with Ted. We're going to head to IG Field right away and get the latest on the Bombers heading into Super Saturday with Eddie Tait. Of course, don't forget Jets and Stars at 2 p.m. tomorrow as this homestand continues. 3 big games next week. New Jersey on Tuesday night, And I know they'll have those Tuesday specials as well if you're looking for tickets. And then back-to-back next weekend, Friday and Saturday. And, of course, Sunday's slate is wide open for the Grey Cup. And the Jets actually are also popping up very quickly some Black Friday deals and some holiday packages, which we'll let you know here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We mentioned to you that we are launching a contest with our great partners over at Vita Health and Prairie Naturals. We're just waiting on an image, which we'll have. So we'll launch this on Instagram and on the website this week. But you will have a chance in today's marble race to qualify for the big marble race on the 30th. And look at this prize, folks. Trevor Linden, who's the brand ambassador for Prairie Naturals, has given us an incredible signed, autographed, with the certificate of authenticity, beautiful Canucks stick jersey. And in addition to that, we've also got the full line of Prairie Natural supplements. So it's Men's Health Month. We figured we'd do it up, and no better place to take care of your health than Vita Health. So stick around for the marble race. We'll qualify a couple individuals, second and third today, for the marble race at the end of the month. And again, it is Men's Health Month, and no better place to get yourself taken care of than Vita Health, which is the place for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. 6 locations in town and online at MyVita, their fully shoppable website. And of course, Prairie Naturals is a big part of Men's Health Month as Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements formulated to help support the changing needs of a man's body. The Prairie Naturals men's health supplements can help males address the challenges with prostate health, andropause, low libido, low testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. On sale all month at Vita Health. So pay close attention to our Instagram page, as well as winnipegsportstalk.com and the contest link over the course of the weekend. And Monday, we will be qualifying 1 entrant a day for the marble race on the last day of Men's Health Month, November 30th, when one lucky winner will get this incredible Trevor Linden signed jersey and the full line of Prairie Naturals supplements. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are busy right now. I mean, you know that they're the fencing experts in town. I've seen the fences and trucks all over the city. I mean, they've been doing it since 1946. But they're also the overhead door leaders in town. And that overhead door of yours had a lot of ups and downs this summer and fall, but guess what? It's about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name, or two you need to know. And that, of course, is Wallace & Wallace. And just before we bring in Ed, a big shout out to our friends at F Apparel. Holiday season just around the corner. Guys, when you look in your closet, if you need to up your menswear game, there's only one place you need to go, and that's F Apparel at 190 Smith Street, downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. Don't forget, if you're in a wedding party or getting married, talk to them about a 15% discount for everybody in the wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. And also, if you are in need, maybe put on your Christmas list or wish list F Apparel gift card. They'll have some great deals heading into December on that as well. All right, let's get out to IG Field as we continue the countdown to kickoff tomorrow between the Bombers and Lions. Ed Tait of BlueBombers.com joins us now. Eddie, one more sleep. What's the vibe like around the squad on IG Field as we get closer to kickoff?
You know, if you can tell it's playoff week, Huss. It's things are getting amped up here a little bit. You can feel a little bit of tension, I think, in the air. Guys are anxious is probably a better word. But in a good way, right? There's a difference between being nervous and being excited, and I think because these guys have been through this so many times before, a lot of the players here, that it tends to lean more to excitement than nervousness right now, which is a good thing. I think that's probably a factor in the playoffs too.
Well, I mean, I think the fans will have a fair share of nerves as well, but also a great confidence that's been earned by this team over the last number of years. But there was a lot of hand-wringing, if you will, when the The roster came out today. Unfortunately, we now know that there will not be Dalton Schoen in the lineup tomorrow. But Ed explained to us the significance of the game time decision label that's been put on Dembski, Rasheed Bailey, and Greg McCrae.
Yeah, there's been a bit of confusion, I think, on social media with this today. Basically, it means that they're not 100% and that the club has up to a half hour before kickoff to decide whether they're going to be able to go or not. So, Coach O'Shea was just answering some questions about that in the media availability a little bit ago. It basically means that, they're going to run these guys around in the morning, or they're going to, look at them in the warm-up, and you make a decision based on what the athletic therapist, Al Couture, and his team and the doctors would say, thumbs up or thumbs down on those guys. And then if they can go, obviously they're in, and if not, then you pull somebody off your roster to replace them. It's kind of scary at this time of year to be without Dalton Schoen, and then to see those on the depth chart, the GTD game time decision in bright red beside Nick Dembski, Rasheed Bailey, and Greg McCrae, because they're all in the same spot too. That's all receivers, and it's a little bit concerning when you're at this stage where it's win or go home.
Well, I mean, the playoffs often write stories of guys that come seemingly out of nowhere to make big impacts. I'll be honest, I don't really want to talk about this game without Dembski and without Rasheed Bailey, but given the game time decision status, what are the options for the Bombers if one or more of those guys can't go with Dalton Schoen already out?
Yeah, it's a great question, Huss. So, you look at the depth chart right now, Brennan O'Leary-Orange is listed as a starter, and, he hasn't started a whole lot other than in those games when they were resting people. You've got behind Rasheed Bailey in the depth chart, there's Janarian Grant, and, he's a dangerous player, but I'm sure most people want to see him returning kicks and not necessarily get. And then the question becomes, could you pull somebody off your injured list or your practice roster? And the other options there are Markeith Ambles, who just arrived in Winnipeg a few weeks ago, the veteran receiver that's played with Toronto and Calgary. You've got Jeremy Murphy, a draft pick. They've also got Ronnie Blackman, a guy that they brought in that is primarily a kick returner. Ravi Alston, who we saw in the last game against Calgary and didn't catch a pass, but they're very intrigued by him. But to your point, Huss, the drop-off between two 1,000-yard receivers in Dalton Schoen and Nick Dembski to someone like that, and no disrespect to them, they might be future stars. Like you said, maybe someone becomes a playoff folklore or a playoff hero tomorrow with something if they have to get into the lineup. But the drop-off is pretty significant, at least when you look at the black and white of the statistics.
You mentioned Markeith Ambles, and that was an interesting signing very late in the season, going into the playoffs. And I think maybe that should have tipped us off that it was more than just Dalton Schoen they were concerned about. But how much has he practiced with the club, and how available and how ready do you think he'd be if he was, pushed into the lineup tomorrow?
I think he got here just a few weeks ago. I'm going to say 2 weeks ago, Huss. So he's had a few practices. I watched the first couple of practices this week. The last two have been closed to the media. And he's been fairly busy. We talked to him before the West semifinal when the Bombers are practicing during the bye week. And he mentioned that the terminology is a little bit different from one place to the next, but he knows about the waggle. He knows how to use the waggle and how to get open. And, he's been around the league. I think he's played 50 CFL games with Toronto and Calgary. I mean, he had 4 catches in the Grey Cup win for Toronto last year. So he's got quite a bit of experience. The question would be, is he the guy that goes in, or is it one of the other guys that I mentioned? Does Janarian Grant get more snaps? Is it Jeremy Murphy? But, I think that we can expect that Brennan O'Leary-Orange is going to get the start too. And so, again, a lot of flux, and the concerning part is that it's all at one position group. And, can the Bombers win with the other receivers? Absolutely. You could probably expect Drew Wolotarski and Kenny Lawler and Rasheed Bailey, if he's going to be really busy, like nobody else too. So we'll see. You'd like to have all of your weapons in your arsenal available, but it might not be the case tomorrow. We're going to have to wait right up until kickoff.
You know, Ed, a lot of love in the chat for the luxurious surroundings that you join us from right now.
Yeah,
he handled
I
internal
think
studios looking real good.
You know what is fine? I got to give the people a shout out. I said I just need a space to work. We're building this new studio here, and all of a sudden everybody goes crazy here. Rianne and Josh and Cam are in here moving things around to try to make it look good. And you know me, I'm just happy if I can get the power on my computer to work. So I appreciate this. I'm expecting it outside the room here. There's probably a nurse waiting. If my fluids get low, they'll wheel in an IV for me too. They're pampering me.
Old pal Riley Maris just popped in chat and said that rumor has it that you water the plants with Diet Pepsi. So we've got some there for two if the plants need any more. Right on, Eddie. Hey, you know, I said, you know, it looks very comfortable there. It might not be comfortable outside, but you know who's comfortable outdoors in the middle of November at IG Field? It's that Blue Bomber offensive line, and I would suggest Brady Oliveira as well. With the questions about the receiving core going into tomorrow's game, I would imagine that those big boys up front and Brady Oliveira are looking incredibly forward to maybe carrying even more of the load tomorrow in a game, frankly, that is built for that unit.
Absolutely. You know, Brady Oliveira did his media session a few minutes ago too, Huss, and you get the sense from him, and he won't come out right out and say it, but if he had to carry the ball 50 times tomorrow, he'd sign up for that. And I think we've seen, and it's not the same with all backs, but it certainly is with Brady, that if you give him 20 carries, carry 15 to 20 might be the best that he has in a game. So if you give him 20 to 25 carries, those last 5 carries, he's, you know, I give him a lot of credit. Every carry he runs it like it's his last, but when he gets hungry and he gets up after a run and he's doing that thing where he's slapping his helmet, it's sort of give me more, give me more. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. You're right, Huss. If the conditions are crappy tomorrow, or even as forecasted, that those guys up front, they want to eat, they want to have Brady run behind them, and they want to push the pile. BC's has not been great against the run this year, so let's see if they can do that again if they have to.
Yeah, well, you know what, Ed, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, that unit, I mean, hopefully go out, establish themselves, and take over the game. And you're exactly right. I mean, going up against the Bomber running game, in a lot of ways, it is a war of attrition. And every single time they pound that football, it takes a little bit out of the defense. And we've seen the Bombers absolutely suffocate teams in the fourth quarter, you know, when they have a lead, knowing that they just need to move the chains. I would suggest that the start in the first half for the defense is also incredibly important because, you know, that game script where the Bombers are up and, you know, and have that opportunity to really just focus on the run in the second half is probably exactly what Mike O'Shea wants. But to do that, you have to do your best to negate the BC offense early on. And certainly Vernon Adams comes in with a hot hand after a great Western semi against the Calgary Stampeders. And he also showed just how dynamic he can be running the football. You know, from a defensive perspective, how do you think the Bombers approach the Lions offense, knowing that they don't have a significant running game, although if they over pursue and get a little too excited to try to maybe sack the quarterback, Vernon Adams is a guy that'll break one tackle, get a little bit of space, and eat you up for big, big chunks.
Well, that's the key storyline for the Bombers, maybe on both sides of the ball tomorrow, is how you control Vernon Adams. He looked so good in that semifinal win for them last week against Calgary. I go back to that game in October that was for first place. Remember in the first half, BC was up and down the field, and Winnipeg, you know, held at certain times to force them into field goals. Otherwise, that one was going to get out of control. But in the second half, he had 100 yards passing only, and 65 of it came on that one play at the end of regulation where Jamal Parker saved the game and saved first place basically for the Bombers because they won it in overtime. There were 2 different games almost within that game. In the first half, Vernon Adams was way too comfortable, you know, picking apart the Bombers' secondary and extending plays with his legs, as you say, Huss. Essentially, that's their run game. You know, I know they have Taekwon Mizell as their running back and they like him, but they finished last in the league in rushing. And really the way they threaten people with the rush is with Vernon Adams and his legs. So but what happened in the second half of that game, I don't have the play chart in front of me, but for most of that second half, Winnipeg seemed to only rush 3 or 4, blitz only occasionally, and drop a bunch of guys back into coverage. And we'll see if they do that tomorrow or what kind of looks they give Vernon Adams. The whole key, and it's not a quarterback that likes to move around the pocket, is sure about what he's seeing. And so if they get production on first down, BC, and he's into a lot of second and threes, that gets dangerous, right? And so it will be interesting to see how the Bombers approach this. I know a lot of people will say, well, why don't you just blitz on every down then and get into Vernon's face to make him uncomfortable? But, then you're vulnerable at the back end to those home run throws. And with that receiving core, that's pretty scary. So what Richie Hall and his group dial up tomorrow defensively is going to be critical, because if Vernon Adams looks tomorrow like he did last week against Calgary, it could be up for a long afternoon for Winnipeg.
Ed, we've been talking a lot about special teams this week, and, the two kickers. Listen, Sean White's had a historically great season. Castillo showed everybody that he's ready for November in Winnipeg with his performance in that snowfield game in Calgary to finish up the regular season. But I'm just looking at the forecast right now, and again, it's been changing all week, but it says a high of -1. Again, this game isn't kicking off until 5:30. It'll be dark by then. Said the wind chill -12 in the morning, -7 in the afternoon. Be interesting to see what happens as we get into the evening, but specifically to the wind. I mean, we know these kickers are elite, and both of them will give their teams chances to, to convert on those options. But when it comes to just the game overall, offense versus defense, is it the windier the better for the Bombers in your mind, considering the way the Bombers can control the game on the ground and what that might do to both passing attacks?
Yeah, perhaps, Huss, at the old stadium, Canadiens, Winnipeg Stadium, I think the wind was way more of a factor there. Like, you'd get up in the morning, and if you saw the kicker rolling in to the game and getting off the bus, if he was a visitor, or even Bob Cameron or Troy Westwood, and the wind was bad, you could see the panic in their eyes already, right? Because the wind there was different. But here it's a little bit different because we're in a bowl, and sometimes when it seems windy outside and you get in here, it doesn't seem quite as bad. But I just think that for the kickers too, we always talk about practicing in these conditions. I think it's really important for the kickers to practice in this, because the ball just comes off your foot differently when it's this cold, and the returners have to learn how to handle the ball falling out of the sky when it's dark or when there's snow in the sky. And unless you practice in that, I think it is a real advantage for Winnipeg. I noticed that the Lions practiced indoors yesterday, and then Winnipeg's been in this for forever. This year, these are your conditions. This is when home field advantage really matters. And so, to your point, special teams could be huge. If we expect this game to be as close as we think, I think Winnipeg's favored by 5. Then it could come down to what happens on specials. And I really think that Winnipeg has an advantage here, because Sergio Castillo is used to kicking in these. We saw the 2021 Grey Cup in Hamilton. He might have been the MVP. Zach Claros was picked as the MVP, but Sergio was 5 for 5 in that day. And the wind was swirling there. It's not as bad here, but I really think practicing in that is a major plus to these guys, not just for the physical part of it, but the mental part. When you roll out here for the first time, and the Lions roll out here, I think they're here today. It's not the same. You need to, it gets in your head. You've got to figure out what kind of gloves you want to wear, what you want on your feet. And this is why you play for home field advantage. I think it's something that does give Winnipeg a massive advantage.
Ed, thanks so much for the time. I know it is a busy day for everyone at Blue Bombers HQ. Cannot wait for kickoff tomorrow. I know the Blue Bomber fans are going to bring it. The stadium, the atmosphere is going to be incredible. And fingers crossed, we'll be talking to you about the Grey Cup next week. But 60 minutes of football tomorrow to see who represents the West and if the Bombers can get back to the big game. All the best, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Huss. Let's do this next week, and I'll bring the ferns to Hamilton.
Done deal. There's Ed Tait. Check out bluebombers.com for full coverage, storylines, keys to victory. It's all up there with Ed and the great team over at bluebombers.com. All right, Ken Wiebe is about to join us. We're going to head down to the rink from IG Field. Kind of perfect to do that, considering how many people, myself included, are going to be at both venues tomorrow. But if you are going to the Bomber game, don't forget the Princess Auto Tailgate Zone opens at 3:30 p.m. $5 beers, $3.50 pop, $3.50 hot dogs. I'm sure they'll have some hot dogs, some hot chocolate there, maybe some warming stations. And the atmosphere has been incredible there all season long. I can't imagine what it's going to be like tomorrow before the big game. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, WST, and the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. If you're going to the game tomorrow and realizing that maybe you need another layer or two, or maybe a Bomber scarf or two, make sure to get down to Royal Sports before the game. A huge Bomber section over at Royal Sports with many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else. So you can both keep warm, look great, and support the home team tomorrow at the game. While you're there, check out their massive Jets selection. And hey, if you want, you can knock off most of your Christmas shopping as well, because Royal Sports has literally everything for the sports fan in the family. And hey, it is, of course, hockey season. I think anyone playing hockey probably knows this already, but they are the hockey superstore in town, family-owned for over 40 years, with everything you need for players of all ages and all skill levels. It's all there under one roof. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And follow them on Instagram heading into the holidays for the latest merchandise drops and sale information at Royal Sports Pembina. And just before we bring in Wiebe, I know there will be some people that will be doing one game and not the other. If you're not at the Jet game or you're not at the Bombers, tomorrow the next best place to watch it all is your local Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, bunch of new appies there as well. No better place to get together with the gang for the big game than BP. And again, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, to the arena we go. Our good friend Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press and Kenny and Rennie fame joins us now to get ready for a super Saturday in the Peg. Wiebe, what's going on down at the rink?
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew. Great to be with you. Figured the Dallas Stars, the Jets have wrapped up, and the Dallas Stars are just starting to bang the puck around. So thought I would check out the lounge area here. Hadn't been down here yet since the reno. So rocking the Tamarack hoodie here, ambassador of fun, as you know. So it's a great sports weekend, so I thought I would have a great sports event across my chest here today. So.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't
And also a remembrance also. We know it's a big weekend on that front too.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone will pay their respects early tomorrow and then get ready to turn it around right away. I mean, both games have had adjusted start times, so Winnipeg sports fans can take it all in. And we'll get to this game tomorrow against the Dallas Stars in a minute. But, Ken, let's just quickly take it back to last night and really the last couple nights. I mean, last Friday, I was on the program talking about what a big week this was for Winnipeg. They'd come off a couple performances where they had arguably left the points on the table with the singles against the Habs and the Rangers. They lost to start the road trip in Vegas. We knew that this was going to be a big week, with head-to-head matchups in the Central Division. And after a slow start in Arizona, the Lowry line put the team on its back, a big win, and then these last two games, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, exploding offensively, but also, as Scott Arniel mentioned after the game, really doing it in both ends. And man, there's a good feeling around this team right now. Everyone is on board. Everyone's pulling on the rope, and now they're getting the results, the desired results at the end of these hockey games.
Yeah, so I mean, the second goal out of the three for Kyle Connor's fifth career hat trick is the epitome of what the Jets have been talking about in terms of improving their two-way play. I mean, it's back pressure all the way from both Scheifele and Kyle Connor. Defense leading to offense, accelerating down the ice, hitting Kyle Connor in stride, and then Kyle Connor just putting on a filthy hands clinic. In terms of going to the backhand, getting around UC Saros and sliding it both around Saros and underneath the sliding Alexandre Carrier after getting walked on the toe drag move there. I mean, it's a tough sport, Huss, but when you have that kind of buy-in from all your players, but especially your elite high-end offensive players, it leads to a great feeling for the entire group. And as Scott Arniel said in the answer to my question yesterday, when Kyle Connor scored one of the prettiest goals of the year, and what the people on the bench were talking about was the play that happened, 150 feet earlier or 125 feet, whatever the measurement is. But what happened just inside the defensive blue line, and then what happened around the blue paint is just one of the most skilled players in the NHL showing off his great hands. But when you have that the type of recognition, it really allows a group to kind of come together. On the other end of that spectrum, on the shot block side, you have Dylan Sandberg laying out with 9 blocked shots, including a couple late. You have that, the combination platter of the back pressure leading to a beautiful goal, and then you have someone laying out for 9 shot blocks in a game. It just turns into a, pretty impressive picture. And, it's something where the Jets have, gone through a lot of heaviness, Huss. I mean, that was also on display today. We know that Neil talked to my colleague Mike McIntyre on the last road trip, but Neil spoke with the media here in Winnipeg for the first time since the passing of his great friend, and being at the funeral. And and you've touched on it all week, Huss. I mean, Neil's playing some of his best hockey. The rink has become a bit of a release valve for him, but Neil reiterating today that, like, as soon as the game's over, he's thinking about his buddy. He's not thinking about playing his best hockey. And yeah, it's nice to be able to do that. But Alex Iafallo sharing a little bit as well. I mean, it's a tough thing for anyone to go through in life. Alex saying himself, like, he's never had this kind of personal loss in his life. And we talk about the hockey, and it's easy to get locked in that 3 hours of viewing pleasure, Huss. But there's a lot that goes into this around the game as well. And the ability for these players to lean on their community and their kind of brotherhood within that room has been really helpful for them. But I mean, it's something where, you can't fake this kind of thing. It's something where it brings people together in the most, tragic of circumstances. But for a guy like Alex Iafallo, who's new to the organization, what he's seeing is a bunch of people rallying around him. He's seeing how the organization treats its players and family members. And, it certainly would make him feel good about the community he has become a part of very quickly. And never mind the fact that Alex Iafallo is now putting up incredible numbers on that top line, which went from being pretty quiet to being one of the loudest lines in the NHL. And then you still have the, blunt force trauma line of Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter, and Mason Appleton continuing to contribute offensively as well. It's been an impressive stretch here for the Jets, as you mentioned, Huss, with these 4 games in a row against Central Division opponents at a time where, they had a couple leads that slipped away in the third period. They have to be feeling good about the way that they're playing as a collective. But Huss, I'm also here to say that as well as they've been playing under very trying circumstances, there are a couple of elements to their game that can further improve. And if that happens, they can become an even more dangerous hockey team, I think. And that's why I think this stretch of games behind them has been important. But now you got the likes of the Dallas Stars rolling into town. You have the New Jersey Devils, who, yes, it's been a little bit of a slower start than they had hoped, but this is a team with legitimate Stanley Cup aspirations after knocking out the Rangers last year. So it's another big week ahead, and I know that's a lot of topics in a short amount of time, but it's sort of that's been the kind of week that it's been, Huss. Like, a lot of stuff happening on and off the ice.
Where there's a couple things I want to get to, but I may as well just jump off what you just finished off at the end. I mean, the team's playing really well; they're getting the results, but you identified a couple areas you think and they feel that they can improve on. Where are those in your mind, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the power play for about a month time, Huss. I mean, 0 for 20, and now they're suddenly rolling along and inching their way towards the middle of the pack. So I mean, that's an important step forward already. Penalty kill has shown improvement. I think team defense, I think they're improving in that area. And as we mentioned, the back pressure element is there. What I would say is that their breakdowns still are happening in places on the ice that have led to some, pretty glorious high danger chances against. I think that Although I think the goaltending is trending upward, Huss. I mean, I don't think either you or I or the goaltenders in question are planning on rocking save percentages below 900 for very much longer. So to me, and that's not a knock on the goaltending, Huss, because as I mentioned, the chances against have been pretty tough, but there have been a couple of uncharacteristic goals that have snuck through both Connor Hellebuck. I'm thinking of the goal the other night, and Laurent Brossoit yesterday. The one shot from Philip Forsberg just kind of tied him up. It kind of went through him. So I think both guys are, obviously, you see it every day. They're putting in the work, and I just expect their numbers to kind of get back to normal, if you will. And once that happens, I mean, we know that Connor Hellebuck is an elite goalie, and we know that Laurent Brossoit was a big piece of the reason why the Vegas Golden Knights captured the Stanley Cup. So I think that their numbers will continue to trend upward. They can get on a bit of a roll, and I think that for Laurent Brossoit especially, Huss, the fact that he's going to be playing one of the games next weekend, I think will help him get into a little bit more of a rhythm that he hasn't really, 2 out of 12, he can't get into a rhythm. There's just no way around that. And I think that the games will start to level off a little bit, and I think that'll be beneficial to both players. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not here to say the Jets goaltending hasn't been good, but it hasn't been what has bailed them out. And we've seen Connor Hellebuck bail out the Jets on numerous occasions during his tenure here. I just think that, and the other thing, Huss, I think is super important that sort of has been lost in this entire shuffle, the fact that Connor Hellebuck had his best game against the Edmonton Oilers. I'm not saying he saved their season, but look at what's happened to Edmonton since, and look what's happened to Winnipeg since, right? I mean, one place is a disaster, and the other place is not only stabilized. We're talking about them now battling when they face the Dallas Stars in this epic central matchup. They're knocking on the door to being in the front. Like, they're knocking on the door to the penthouse here, Huss. They don't want to just be in the middle of the pack. So I would say that's an important thing for the Jets, because that Connor Hellebuck is going to start to play at that elite level sooner than later. Yeah, at least that's what I assume.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you as well. And I think, getting the win last night was massive for Brossoit.
Oh, for sure.
Because, listen, I thought he was a little shaky in the Montreal game. First game against Vegas, I mean, it wasn't a great game, and there were some breakdowns in front of him. But you want more playing time, play better. And, he certainly did what it took to win the game last night. And, hopefully that's a sign of things to come when he gets back in the net, presumably next weekend in the second halves of back-to-backs. You used the word brotherhood. Sorry, you're going to...
Sorry, obviously the other element that I meant to touch on in terms of things we expect to improve, the play of the second line is going to improve also. And I don't just mean offensively. We know Nikolai Ehlers has another level to reach, and again, I expect him to reach that level. Vladislav Nemestikov has jumped up into a role that is no doubt a challenge. Second line center job is not an easy job. I think he's handling it quite well. Cole Perfetti still found a way to contribute, but I just think that as time moves along, I expect that second line will start to pop a little bit more, if you will, too. Sorry, I just wanted to tie up the bow on that one.
Definitely agreed with you on that. Ken, you've covered this team for a long time, and you just used the word brotherhood, and how the team has sort of rallied around Neil Pionk and Alex Iafallo and Dominic Toninato as well.
Yeah.
For as long as you've covered this team, we've always heard them say the right things. That they're a really tight-knit team. They're really close. And I don't know whether I always bought it, to the extent that maybe it was being sold. It certainly seems that way right now. And I mean, all you need to do is look at what Adam Lowry did in the first period last night, the way he's leading game in and game out, not to mention the way his line is playing. But how would you compare just the feeling you get about this team being a real team, with everyone feeling a part of it and everyone being part of the victories and being a part of the unit, both on the ice, in the room, and outside of the rink?
Yeah, Hassan, again, this subject I know you talked about a lot this week, and just my one area of caution, and it's to say nothing about this year. This year speaks for itself. These guys obviously have been brought together by a number of things, whether it's the health of Judy Bonus or the unfortunate and untimely death for Adam Johnson, and winning also helps. But I mean, Huss, if we rewound the tape to last year, when the Jets had their best start in franchise history, I think we were saying a lot of the same things. in terms of the good feeling around the team. So that's to take nothing away from this year, because I think that is a very real thing. But I just think it's something that of course, we're measuring it in real time, but I think that it's not that much different from last November for me. But the difference being, obviously, to a degree under new leadership with Adam Lowry taking over as captain. But I think we saw, I just don't think that we can forget all of the good feelings coming out of the pledge. Like everything last year when we were talking about after 15 games, was the pledge from Banff and the way that the team was playing there as well. So, but what I do think it's more of a sustainable pattern for this year because of all the things that we've been talking about in terms of people feeling more a part of it. You have a 4-line team now. You have, everyone is getting involved and chipping in. It's not a 1-line hockey team. It's not a leadership in transition. And I think too, in a lot of ways, Adam Lowry becoming an alternate captain last year was helping to set the table for him becoming the captain this year. So I do think that he's picked up where things have left off, and these are trying circumstances. Make no mistake. I mean, the Jets have gone through a lot in 1 month's time compared to what some teams don't even go through in 1 year. So I think they're handling it incredibly well. They are to be applauded for that, Huss. But I just think it's sometimes, I'm not saying this is recency bias for you. I'm just thinking that I don't think it's that different from last year, the way people were feeling about things. But I think it looks different because obviously I think some important changes were made, and we know that those changes were necessary on a lot of fronts. Yeah, I mean, listen, I will maintain that the leadership of this team is in a whole different place. And listen, it's benefiting everybody in that room. And I'll tell you what, it's connecting with the fans a hell of a lot more than this team did in the last few years as well. And that is something that I think this organization needs as well. You mentioned Judy Bonus. I just have to quickly ask. I mean, we haven't heard a lot on that. I know they're not really giving any public updates, but is there any good news that you're hearing about her status and about a potential return of Rick? Yeah, Huss, I don't have anything for you on that front. I mean, it's obviously a sensitive subject, and it's not something that is it just, much like we've been talking about Gabriel Velarde. Obviously, these are night and day different types of things. It's not an imminent sort of thing. I don't know. I have no idea when. To me, it's something that will sort of unfold as it unfolds, I guess. And that's I think that when there is an announcement, it'll be widely known by everyone. And this isn't something where you're, this is sort of, you're not prying to find out. Like when Rick is ready, he'll be back here. I mean, nobody wants to be back here more than Rick, but this is another great example of everything we've been talking about that has caused a lot of the bonds. The family element, sometimes, not even sometimes, it has to come first, and it's coming first in this situation. And the Jets are handling this situation as best they can, and they're fortunate that they have a coaching staff that can help them power through a situation that no one could have foreseen coming. And Huss, part of that we know is Rick missed some time last year, but I expect that Rick is still in communication with the coaches with regularity, and the coaches that are running things on a daily basis are doing a fantastic job. Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Ken Wiebe, the Freep, with us from IG Field, from Canada Life Center. We were just at IG Field. We'll be at both tomorrow. Hey, before I ask you about that game at IG Field, tee up this challenge tomorrow. I mean, we talked all week long about this huge division in the Central, a huge week in the Central Division. They've got the first three. And now they move up a weight class to a team that is assumed by most to be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, one of the biggest tests of the year, at a time where I'm sure the Jets are feeling quite confident and very much ready for this challenge. Yeah, no doubt, Hudson. I mean, it's not dissimilar to what they saw when they faced Vegas twice already, or when they faced LA. I mean, us, we thought about it last year. We knew that LA was on the rise last year. But you look up now, they're 7-0 on the road. So the fact that the Jets had a dominant first and then LA kind of turned the tables, that loss doesn't look as, I wouldn't say as bad as it did then, but the games that the Jets have not taken points in are against high-end teams. But, if you want to chase down those high-end teams that are above them in the standings, these are the types of games they want to win. I had a great chat about this with Nate Schmidt. I mean, us, in the media, we can be guilty about, everything's a measuring stick, but like Nate Schmidt's answer to that question was, of course you want to find out. Like, where do you stack up? I mean, Saturday night, part of a homestand, players are up for these kind of games. Never mind, it's a divisional game against an opponent that they've seen a ton and had some unbelievable games against in the last, 6-7 years. I mean, it's a great matchup. You have two world-class Vezina caliber goalies going head-to-head. You have a lot of, Dallas is a great blend of young and old, Huss, right? Veterans and young players. Rope Hintz is coming into his own and getting the recognition league-wide. Jason Robertson is a dominant force. Joe Pavelski continues to shine, as he gets inches closer to 40 years old. And, Miro Heiskanen, Huss, this just in, wanting folks to recognize he's in the Norris conversation again this year, along with the likes of Josh Morrissey and some of the other great defensemen around the league. So, and Wyatt Johnston, another guy who is coming off a great rookie season. They're a fun team to watch. The one thing about Dallas, they have a lot of firepower, but they don't score as easily. But one thing they do incredibly well, Huss, we know this, they're built on structure. They're very good defensively. They're tough to score on, and they've got a great goalie at the back end. They're well coached by Pete DeBoer. They play with great structure. The one thing, I guess, their power play has been fighting it a little bit, but we know how quickly that can change because we saw how quickly it changed with the Jets. So fun matchup on the special team side. Jets power play is hot. They're going to go against the top-ranked penalty kill. I love a lot of things about this matchup. It's a great sports day coming up tomorrow, Huss. Basically, it's a sports fan's dream. You got a double dip of epic proportions. You have teams going head-to-head. You have it's going to be intense. There's going to be great crowds. There's going to be a great buzz all around the province, whether you're in the buildings or watching on television. It's all you can ask for, basically, Huss.
You and Rennie should do K&R.
We're doing it late. We're going late,
from
Huss.
section 136. right behind the north end zone with all those maniacs who will be standing all game probably with their shirts off in the middle. That would be an all-time K&R. Hey, listen,
we're going to wait until the post bonfire. We're not going post-game Jets. We're going to get out of the way for the Bombers. Darren and company will fire up the Bomber post-game, and then we're going to go up K&R after dark, I think, as well for Saturday night. I know that there's a lot of crossover in terms of your chat room and ours. So if the folks didn't see the announcement yesterday, that's our intention and plan will be to we'll wrap up a busy day a little bit later in the day.
Well, and this is the beauty of where we all live now.
Indeed.
You know what? If you're hopefully everyone will be busy when you guys are live. And then everyone will make a point to ease into Sunday.
Yeah,
reliving a great hockey game. Hopefully that ends up for the home team on Sunday. Wiebe, just before we'll ask you to kind of finish up with your thoughts on the Bombers. But while we're staying with hockey, let's move away from the Jets for a minute. I mean,
yeah.
What? Well, I don't even know where to start with this Oilers team. I mean, that loss last night to San Jose felt like it was a dagger potentially for head coach Jay Woodcroft. Now that nothing has happened today,
right.
Maybe they're going to take a little bit of time, but how is a team with so much talent where they are right now? What do you make of this disaster that's happening in Oil Town?
Yeah, Huss, I know your buddy Dusty and our guys Tommy. They were busy last night.
Hey, it's good for
chat
business.
Chat room was buzzing from what I saw. It's hard to put a finger on it, Huss. I mean, this is a team that has a lot of talent. They have some deficiencies, and right now those deficiencies are getting in the way of the talent and the structure and everything else. They have had almost no secondary scoring. They've had very limited goaltending. Their team defense has been abysmal, and right now their most talented players, as good as they are, aren't able to just put the team on their back and say, hop on. At least that's what it seems like from the outside. Jay Woodcroft's done a great job since stepping behind that bench, Huss. I mean, I think his winning percentage, prior to the San Jose game at least, I think was rocking around .655. So it's hard to say the team's not well coached. At the same time, they have some holes. whether it's on the roster or just in terms of how they're playing with zero confidence, and they're not getting bailed out by the masked men between the pipes. It's hard to imagine that Calvin Pickard won't be in the net the next game, Huss. The Winnipegger, it's a massive opportunity for him. I thought he was going to play yesterday already. But Stuart Skinner, I didn't see the goals, but Huss, if you're giving up 3 on 14 shots and you need to win, that's not good enough. And I'm not blaming Stuart Skinner, but you gotta find a way to make one more save or whatever it is. But the team in front of him has been terrible in terms of what they're giving up in terms of grade A's. And no one's going to be throwing them a lifeline, Huss. I mean, 3 losses already to Vancouver. Like they're double-digit points behind Vancouver in the standings. Yes, we know there's a lot of games left, but I think I thought I saw a tweet from Thomas Drance. Like the Oilers are going to have to play at like a ridiculous points percentage just to get to the 94 points. And yeah, hey, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have shown that they can do some great things, but they're just not getting enough from a lot of areas. Huss, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins gave them 3 100-point players last year. Has been nowhere to be found on most nights. I think he scored yesterday, but he has not produced. Vander Kane is suddenly gone cold in terms of the on-ice production. And right now, they don't look like a team that is handling the weight of expectation, Huss. Huss, a month ago, most pundits were promoting the Oilers as not only a Stanley Cup favorite, but as their pick to win the Stanley Cup. Now, I'm quick to say I was not one of them, but I did have them. I thought they would win the Pacific Division and then, potentially go to the conference final, probably get knocked out by Vegas. But, I mean, they're going to have to turn things around just to be a playoff team right now. Never mind battling for the division. Like, they've got a lot of work to do to start, making their way up the ladder in the standings. But it doesn't look good right now, Huss. And I mean, that's not breaking news, but it's one of the bigger surprises of the season. And Huss, in some ways, it's reminiscent of the Jets the year coming out of the North Division, where the weight of expectation, they absolutely crumbled underneath it. And then the next year, Connor Hellebuck even talked about it, which kind of surprised us.
Well, the weird thing about the Jets that year is they crumbled in the second half of the year. They were second overall at New Year's, and then they kind of imploded internally. I mean, this has been right from the get-go. I mean, they have not won at Rogers Place yet this year. They've got a home win that was outdoors, and incredibly, and I mentioned this earlier, but I just still can't believe it. Now, through 12 games, they have the same number of wins as the Elks did through 12 games after starting 0-9. They're 14 points back of the Kings for third place right now through 12 games of the season.
A same number of wins as the Sharks team that beat them. This is absurd. The Sharks gave up 10 goals in a game in consecutive games.
Back to back.
And the Oilers have the same number of wins. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no other way to describe it.
And listen, all eyes are going to be on Edmonton. I mean, you just can't not take it off of it. I mean, it just doesn't seem to compute. It doesn't make sense, especially for a team that, went toe-to-toe with the Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs last year, arguably gave them their toughest challenge and best series. And there they are. I mean, tied with the Sharks at the dead last in the National Hockey League. It truly is stunning. Wiebe, before we finish up, let's get to the second half of the double dip tomorrow. What are your thoughts on the Bombers as they take on the Lions? No Dalton Schoen, and questionable statuses for Nick Dembski, Rashid Bailey, and now Greg McRae as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for an excuse to follow up with our guy Justin Dunk. I think he dropped a slobber knocker into the chat the other day. So love that analysis. It's hard to read. Bomber. Proceed with caution when it comes to injury reports. Is what we've learned. Jeff Hamilton knowing that better than anybody else, being around the team as often as he is. But what I would say, Huss, it's got to be twofold for me. It's got to be an O-line, short sleeves, domination station day for Brady Oliveira. And on the other side, they're going to need Jackson Jeffcoat, Willie Jefferson, and the guys on the interior to pressure Vernon Adams and keep him in contain, right? I mean, it's the kind of game where Vernon Adams, if he gets going on his feet, getting out of the pocket, improvisation, all of those things, he can give the Bombers difficulty because he keeps plays alive. But what I do think is that the Bombers secondary will be up for the challenge, and that challenge will be made easier if the Jets can apply, if the Bombers can apply some pressure on the QB. So win the battle of the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That's who's going to win the game, unless somehow you turn those turnovers in the turnover battle into points. We know you talked about it too. Special teams all week has been a point of emphasis. You got 2 great kickers in the game. So, you're not expecting things to come down to a missed field goal or a blocked field goal like we saw in the Grey Cup last year in Regina. You're expecting that the best players will elevate. They'll find a way. I can't imagine Nick Dembski not playing Huss. Whatever it takes, I expect him to be on the field and to make an impact. I mean, he's an impact player. He's going to be an impact player probably in the run game and the passing game if he is able to do so and is healthy enough to do so. I expect Brady Oliveira to be key. And the other thing too, Huss, Zach Collaros, he's going to play well. I mean, we all know he was hurt last year, didn't have the best West Final from what I recall. I think that he's been a great player for this organization for an incredibly long time. I think we're going to see a signature type of performance from Zach Collaros, and not because of what you were talking about with Justin Dunk. I don't think this is a don't forget about me for MOP, but I do think he is going to have a dominant West Final, and I expect him to have a dominant Grey Cup as well, because, quite frankly, he's needed to play better in some of the big games on the big stage the last couple of years, and I expect he's going to perform to a high level because he holds himself to a high standard.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I'm with you. I know Zach can be that guy, but I would be more than happy if he didn't have to be that guy tomorrow and they rode Brady Oliveira and those big boys up front and really took over and dominated that game from the line of scrimmage, as you mentioned, with a running game that was built for the middle of November outdoors in Winnipeg, Manitoba at IG Field. Wiebe, great stuff. Again, tomorrow, Bombing and the boys will wrap the Bomber game on Bonfire afterwards, and then you and Rennie will fire it up a little later on Saturday night for the latest, I'm sure, hitting on both games, getting people ready for the rest of their weekend. Thanks for doing this, and we'll see you tomorrow at the rink before the big game at IG Field.
Yeah, right on, my friend. Have a great day. People enjoy the festivities and have a great chat with Hacksaw. Lots of fun NFL action going on this weekend as well.
Yeah, well, I think there'll be a lot of people licking some wounds on Sunday and just staple their ass to the couch and watch the NFL. Hopefully, coming off what we, fingers crossed, will be an incredible sports day tomorrow here in the Peg. Wiebe, you have a great weekend. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, my man. You as well. Cheers.
Beautiful. There is our pal Ken Wiebe, and again, late edition of Kenny and Rennie tomorrow after Bonfire post-game with Bombing after the Bomber game. Ken just mentioned the weekend in the NFL, a couple big teams on byes this week, but still some real interesting matchups. We're going to get to that and the latest in the NFL Notebook with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton in just a minute. But as we mentioned, the weekend is here. Tomorrow's a big, big day. I know many of you will be tailgating. Hey, it's a big game. You may as well bring the best with you to the parking lots and make sure that is Little Brown Jug. 1919 generic lager, both available at the hockey rink. 1919 available at the Bomber game as well. And I can tell you, I just picked up an 8-pack for just $19.99 at my local beer store earlier in the week of generic lager. So whether you're heading down to the brewery and tap room on William Avenue or your local beer store, make it the best that Winnipeg has to offer. Little Brown Jug. Check them out and follow their socials as well for updates on when they'll be doing some Jets watch parties or, the ability to watch the game at Little Brown Jug for both the Jets and the Bombers, potentially, hopefully next Sunday for the Grey Cup. And hey, a big thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ for their sponsorship and support of Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. They've got 3 DQs, the DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, as well as the DQ in Niverville, and then now have the Pita Pit in Niverville. Pita Pit's so good, healthy, fresh, delicious, fast. A great option if you're in the Niverville area. And of course, you can also enjoy it through catering. If you do have catering needs, school lunches, birthday parties, and more, Nick and Nikki would love to help you out. They will deliver anywhere in the city. You can hit them up on Instagram or X at PETA Pit Niverville. All right, we're going to get to Hacksaw in just a couple of minutes. And again, we will have the marble race starting relatively soon. Keep an eye on the chat for when Remis wants to fire that one up. And again, we'll have the regular hoodie prize for the winner, but the second and third place marbles today are going to be entered as finalists in our November 30 marble race at the end of Men's Health Month for this beautiful Trevor Linden autographed jersey, complete with a certificate of authenticity and the full rack of all the Prairie Natural supplements. So stay tuned for that and keep an eye on the chat for when it's time to enter in the marbles. Let's welcome in Hacksaw to get ready for the week in the National Football League. And Saw, it is great to have you on the program. Just before we get to football, listen, I know you're following all of the sports, but are you keeping an eye on what's happening with this Edmonton Oilers team? And the Sharks hadn't won a game at all. They're now hot. They won 2 in a row, but what a disaster for the Oilers losing that game last night in San Jose.
Anybody have Daryl's phone number? Oh, I got feedback here. You guys got
one sec. Sorry about that.
Remo just clipped that, and we've had that.
Okay, we're good now.
We're good now. We have five alarm fire in Edmonton, Lee. What's your take on that? It's the big story around Canada.
Does anybody have Daryl Sutter's home phone number in Viking, Alberta? It's hard to believe, but I look at this from a long view. They had to know they had bad goaltending last year, playoffs. Why was there no movement to do something to fix that end of the equation in the offseason? Now, the rumor mill is they got number 1 pick that they're shopping to try to get legitimacy in goal. Tell you what, the Ducks have got 2 goaltenders. I don't know if they'd trade John Gibson for a number 1. Maybe they would because they're still in the midst of rebuild. Their backup goaltender is really good, Lucas Dostal. Stood on his head 2 years in a row. I'll call Edmonton and give them the Anaheim Ducks phone number if they want a goaltender. But that to me is part and parcel of what's wrong, is they just can't get anybody to stop the puck at that end of the ice. Now, maybe they don't have enough scoring on their second or third line. But yeah, 5 alarm fire. I would assume that somebody's going to be unemployed maybe by Sunday if they don't flip this thing. So not good. And speaking of San Jose, I've seen poor teams of late. I've never seen anybody go 0-10-1 right out of the gate in modern day NHL hockey. But that's the end result of massive rebuild. Trade everybody all the time and stockpile picks. But boy, rebuilding and fixing it, that's a long road to walk.
Yeah, they got a long way to go. Not only were they 0-10-1, they got drilled for double digits on back-to-back nights. It's been a stunning start, which made that win over the Oilers that much more amazing, to be honest. You mentioned potential unemployment. I never thought that I would be saying this and using Bill Belichick's name involved with unemployment, but all sorts of rumors coming out of New England about dysfunction between Belichick, owner Robert Kraft. They're in Frankfurt this week taking on the Colts. Lee, what are you hearing about the Patriots and the future of Belichick as the man in Foxborough?
Well, the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald American are both reporting that there's no conversation right now between Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, which is kind of hard to believe because Kraft has always been a very active owner involved with his coach for all the good years. But you know what? The general manager of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, has failed the coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick. Their drafts have really been weak. They've drafted more defense than never fixed the offense post Tom Brady. I got to believe that he's going to be gone at the end of the season because this rebuild is taking way too long. And the reality is that they're no closer now than they were the day after Tom Brady stepped aside because Mac Jones has not turned out to be the quarterback they thought he would be. He's kind of stalled. He's regressed. He's not progressed under Bill O'Brien. And when you and I did our NFL preview back in the 1st of September, I was anxious to see how Mac Jones was going to take that jump ahead with O'Brien, because they had ties going back to the University of Alabama, and O'Brien's a pretty bright light as a next-to-nose guy, but they don't have much of a run game. They're negligible in the down-the-field passing attack. They let one of their wide receivers leave to go to the Raiders after coming off a really good season last year. So they're just a mess. So it's the GM that's causing all this heartache for the coach, and I think they both could exit, which is, to me, it's really stunning to think that this thing has fallen. But since Brady retired, or since Brady moved to Tampa Bay and then retired, Belichick's 26-32. And Belichick, without Brady, over the course of his entire career, that's Cleveland and New England, his record's like 81-94. So Bill's a bright mind defensively. Bill's not very good in player personnel, and something has to change there, and I would assume it might well be both the coach and the general manager.
Hey, Lee, speaking of crisis situations, it wasn't supposed to be this way for the Carolina Panthers after trading their number one pick this year, moving up, selecting Bryce Young. We saw the Panthers lose again against the Bears and a backup quarterback last night, and it has not been great for Frank Reich. I saw that shot of the owner last night in the fourth quarter. I don't know if you caught that, just sitting there shaking his head. How dire are things in Carolina with the Panthers?
Well, it's just part of a long rebuild. You know, David Tepper has put his fingerprints on a lot of different things there in Charlotte. I think maybe to a degree to the detriment of the club. You know, they traded their top wide receiver, big play guy, DJ Moore. He went to the Bears last year. The year before that, at the trading deadline, they moved Christian McCaffrey. Now they got a bonanza of draft picks. But when you're drafting and then you're playing all those kids on a bad team, it just takes a long amount of time. Now in Charlotte, I mean, the beat writers there are questioning whether Frank Reich was the right hire. It doesn't matter who would be in there. You, me, God, my dog. It doesn't matter. They just don't have enough players. But that becomes the issue. Bryce Young's going through some slow growth, not as good as C.J. Stroud, who's just lighting it up in Houston. They just need patience. And Tepper needs to step away and I think Reich's a good football guy. Let Reich build it. Unfortunately, it's going to be a slow build in Charlotte. As long as the quarterback doesn't get hurt, but he's taking hits and he's taking sacks and he's thrown picks and he's fumbled, and a little bit of culture shock for Bryce Young. I mean, dude, it wasn't this way at Alabama, was it? So it's going to take time.
Lee, we're seeing Kyler Murray back for the first time this year. Arizona's fascinating. We'll get to where Josh Dobbs ended up in a minute. But why Kyler now? What's at stake for him and the organization, knowing that there's a very good chance they'll have a very high pick in this year's draft?
Well, he's got to prove that, A, he's healthy. Now, they wouldn't put him on the field unless he'd done everything he needed to do in practice as they, prepare for actual game action. So now we'll find out whether he's become a student of the game, because that was one of the huge raps on him, that he didn't prepare very much. He tried to freelance it all based on his athleticism, and eventually he took so many hits, he wound up suffering a significant knee injury. I don't know that they can hit the eject button on him at the end of the season, because I think there's big salary cap hit implications if they do. But that's something to keep in mind. If this 1-8 team turns out to be 2-15, they just may trade him. I don't think that bite the bullet, eat the contract, and take the cap hit. They'd try to get something back, let somebody else take on the contract and try to develop the quarterback. And yeah, they're going to have a fairly high draft pick. Hell, it might be number one, or maybe they in Carolina wind up with co-number one picks. And at least Arizona then would have the chance to get one of the quarterbacks, whether it's Caleb Williams from USC, or there's Drake May, who I don't think is getting anywhere near enough national recognition out of North Carolina. I think those are going to be the top two quarterbacks. But it's a mess. And then you couple in what's gone on off the field. And I don't know if you paid much attention to the whole Michael Bidwill situation and the firing of all these front office employees, and now the letters the employers have written telling Bidwill that he is so disruptive and he's so negative that he's absolutely poisoned the work atmosphere in that organization. And so now you look at what's on the field, and Jonathan Gannon's got his hands full with half a roster, and these are the guys that got rid of running backs and got rid of wide receivers. I mean, their methodology of how they run the franchise, that looks like the Edmonton Elks. Not very good at all.
Well, you know what? From the bad to the good. What an incredible story Josh Dobbs wrote last week with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, just an all-time win for that team. And a guy that had been so well-traveled over the last couple of years gets an opportunity to go in with a team that had really been showing things in the last few weeks before the Cousins injury. And they got the Saints in the U.S. Bank Stadium on the weekend. It just feels like there's a lot of good things happening for Kevin O'Connell's team. And but what happened last week was, a movie script.
To quote Allen Iverson, practice. Who needs practice? How about Josh Dobbs? Takes part in 2 quarterback meetings, looks at the playbook, no snaps with the number 1 unit, and dude goes out and throws for $166. I think he ran for 56 yards, and he got him the win. And Kevin O'Connell is willing this team to victory because he's a smart guy with X's and O's and all that creative stuff. He's done a phenomenal job, and he's doing this without Justin Jefferson. That's the most stunning thing to me. And he's kind of doing it with only a halftime running game. So it's phenomenal. Now, I will say this, and I'm not going to downgrade Josh Dobbs. He's a real solid backup quarterback, and he'll give you 15 minutes of flash that say, yeah, this guy can make some plays. But as they compile video on Josh Dobbs and whatever offense is in, it eventually does catch up to him, and he winds up going back onto the bench. But, hey, they were desperate. It's a cool story. Dobbs has kind of bounced around, but he's had flashes of success, whether it was with the Pittsburgh Steelers or what he did early on in Arizona. So he'll buy them some time, but eventually a backup quarterback becomes a backup quarterback for the most part. But it's cool, and Kevin O'Connell is just willing the Vikings to victory, and I'm a big KOC fan because he's from down here in San Diego.
He's doing a hell of a job right now, and these players love him. And I mean, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I mean, whether you're a Viking fan or not, those videos of him in the room handing out the game balls after these wins the last 4 weeks have been really cool. And seeing his new teammates put Josh Dobbs on their shoulders last week was something I think everybody can get behind. Hey, just before we go, as far as the slate goes, 3 pretty interesting games on the docket. You got the Niners coming off the bye into Jacksonville against the Jags. AFC North backyard brawl, Ravens-Browns, and an interesting game matching up between the Lions, who were coming off that bye, and the Chargers, who got that big win on Monday night.
Yeah, hey, sidebar, I don't know if I told you the story. I was told that after the win, O'Connell was in the locker room with the players before Hobbs was doing an interview on the field. And as he was walking through the door into the locker room, Kevin O'Connell silenced all his teammates and said, "You think we ought to keep him?" And the locker room just went clear. And here came Hobbs into the locker room. As it relates to the games, San Francisco, they've dropped 3 in a row. They've not been the same team since Deebo Samuel went down with a back injury. Christian McCaffrey had the oblique. They come off the bye. Deebo has practiced 3 days in a row now out here on the West Coast. I think he's good to go. McCaffrey is 100% healthy. Brock Purdy, though, you know what? Maybe it's because he can't do it all by himself because the other guys were dinged. Purdy's thrown 5 picks, had 2 fumbles last 3 games. That's not the Brock Purdy that we saw. Now, people are running around the streets saying, well, everybody's caught up to what he does. I don't think so. I think San Fran was dinged up. So this is an important game. But I'll tell you what, and Deebo is going to play. CMC is going to play at running back. Jacksonville's really good. Nobody knows it. There's no sexy names on that team. Tell you what, that coaching staff has got them playing to the max. And Trevor Lawrence makes plays. Travis Etienne, it's taken him 2 years to learn the NFL and come back from a major knee surgery. He's playing well. The third guy in the Three Musketeers is Ridley, the ex-Falcon wide receiver. And they just play really hard. And their defense is pretty good. It's not neon light defense. Their statistics are not staggering, but they kind of make it hard on you. And those games are just, they grind it out. So Frisco got to win. I would have never imagined San Francisco had lost 3 in a row, but now they come off the bye week. Baltimore, Cleveland. You got Lamar Jackson. I want you to look across the line of scrimmage and take a look at that pass rusher, Myles Garrett. Cleveland's got 27 quarterback sacks. They're going to be challenged. Deshaun Watson, that's a Baltimore Raven defense. That's Harbaugh, crazy man on defense. Baltimore's got 35 sacks already. I mean, they're en route to more than 70 quarterback sacks this season. Baltimore's given up only 292 yards per game. And when your quarterback has the ball on third down, his conversion rate is only 32%. So these two quarterbacks are going to face enormous challenges. I mean, it's weird to say maybe this is just a Justin Tucker field goal game, because I do think both these quarterbacks are going to be slowed down. And then the third game that's kind of on the menu that people should pay attention to. Charger fans are so excited. They won 2 in a row. My God. You beat the Bears, and then you really beat a bad New York Jets team. And you're excited you won 2 in a row. And there's no big play touchdown passes yet from Justin Herbert because he's playing with a fractured index finger. And their defense against bad teams, they do okay. Against good teams, they're 0-3 on the season. And this is Detroit. The city of Detroit, you go to Detroit in the winter and it's got dirty snow and ice and soot and all that. That's the way the Lions play football. They make every one of these games a rock fight, and they are so physically tough. And Jared Goff, the quarterback that the Rams ran out of here a couple years ago, they've polished him, and he manages games, and he makes enough plays down the field. Jared Goff has a quarterback rating equal to what the Chargers' bright young quarterback Justin Herbert has. So this is going to be a real challenge. They're going to test the Chargers' manhood, and the Chargers have to win this. They're sitting there at 4-4. Yeah, they're still within a quote stone's throw of Kansas City. But you know what? After this, they got to play Buffalo. They got to play Kansas City again. They've got to go to Green Bay. They've still got some really rugged games on the Chargers schedule. So somehow, some way, the Chargers have to win this rock fight. But I don't think it's going to be easy because Detroit, they play like the sooty smokestacks in downtown Detroit. That's their personality. That's the color of their team. So I think these are the 3 marquee games on the schedule.
Yeah, I cannot wait for Sunday. We got a big Saturday here with the Jets in Dallas at 2, and then the Bombers in the West Final against BC at 5:30. Lee, I know being the content machine that you are, it's been another busy week. Fill people in on what's up at the website as well as the YouTube channel and all of your Instagram follies.
Well, before I start, what you're going to see on Saturday is a prime example as to why I've been a proponent of guys going to the Canadian Football League. Your name is Vernon Adams. You weren't quite big enough to play in the NFL, and instead of being a third stringer, you go to the CFL, and look what he's done this year. 4,500 yards passing for British Columbia. And Zach Caleros, University of Cincinnati, might not have been big enough to play in the NFL. Look what he did. I mean, I followed him when he went to the Hamilton Ticats, and now he's doing it in combo with your big running back there in Winnipeg. So that's fun. And Chad Kelly has found a home in Toronto with the Argos. And, of course, the Argos play Montreal. So in between all the college football games, I just might turn right, cast a glance at some of the games in the CFL because I'm fascinated by the 3 downs and 110 yards and quarterbacks who run and throw on the run and are accurate. But that's a prime example of what the Canadian Football League can do. And those guys go up there, they don't have to come back. They like it up there. They're being stars up there. They're making decent money up there. So, I salute to those guys who've gone to Canada and made a career for themselves. And in terms of my website, if you like sports, I write about it every day of the week, all the sports, ton of topics on the table. Website is leehacksawhamilton.com. If you're into podcast, when you get done listening to this guy in Winnipeg, check my podcast out on my YouTube channel. It's Lee Hacksaw Hamilton Sports. And we do a ton of stuff on Instagram. And I always tell people, because they know that you and I are pals, you don't like what I say? Blame him in Winnipeg. He's the one that introduced me to the podcast world. By the way, nice gear you're wearing there, pal.
Hey, ready to go for the game tomorrow. We got our bomber covered WST hat. We got the shirt on, the hoodie, and obviously the poppy for Remembrance Day tomorrow. It's going to be a fun one, Lee. Make sure you check out. It is going to be a scene here in Winnipeg out at the U of M at IG Field. Have a great weekend. Thanks as always.
My pleasure. Talk to you again, Hustler.
You got it. There's the man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Can't do a Friday show without a visit to the Saw and the the NFL Notebook. All right, last call for marbles, everybody. I think pretty much everyone is in, but if you just popped in, you still have time. We'll do a quick last call for marbles, and then we'll get into the marble race. And again, remember, qualifiers second and third place in today's marble race are going to be the first two qualifiers to win this beautiful Trevor Linden autographed jersey from our friends at Vita Health and Prairie Naturals, complete with the certificate of authenticity and a full package of the Prairie Naturals supplement line, which you can find at your local Vita Health Fresh Market. Remo, just as you close that off, do we want to give a quick shout out to the Mo Bros and the guys that have been growing stashes as part of the WST team? You can, by the way, link in description if you'd like to donate and help us raise money for men's health and important men's health awareness at this month. I know you said you had a couple updates from the fellas.
Yeah, I got a bunch of updates. Shout out to all our Mo Bros, and yeah, check the link in the description. I'll pin it right now. And if you're listening on the podcast, winnipegsportstalk.com. At the top bar, there's a link that says Movember. And if you're on your phone, you got to click the three lines or whatever on the side to bring up the that menu there. Here, let me bring out a couple updates of how it's going. We have a couple guys have sent it in. Derek Schmidt, Derek Honer, and I have one other one as well from Ray, who listens not in the YouTube chat, Ray, but podcast listener Ray. So shout out Ray. Shout out Ray. We respect all the podcast listeners out there. So this Ray sent this one in this morning, coming in nicely. Oh, here it is. Whoa. Sorry, Huss. There we go. All right, this is Ray's stash. It's coming in.
Oh, Ray, nice work. Nice work. Here, hey, it's the first week. This is going to be great to follow Ray throughout the next week. Nicely done, Ray. And hey, thanks again for jumping on board and helping us raise funds for Movember and the two Dereks as well.
This is okay. Julian sent me his. Julian, I guess he's waiting to shave his full beard. And if you remember Julian Huss, a couple weeks, I didn't even recognize him because he posted that picture with Chris Strevler.
Yeah, in the fur coat.
In the fur coat, he had this huge beard. I don't think I had ever seen his full face, although we did see him at Little Brown Jug one time. So there's Julian. It's coming in nice and thick.
Yeah, he is. He was made for Movember, Julian.
Yeah, and there's this is Derek Schmidt. It's coming in
the
pretty
Duster.
solid.
The Duster's coming in on Derek. What up, Derek?
I think he had a full beard that he has. Like, oh, do I have to shave my beard for this? And we're like, yeah, you gotta do it, man. So
stash month.
And here, I'll save Derek Honer because he's ready for Bomber game day tomorrow. He's wearing his Bomber jersey. Look at those beautiful patches. This is a nice one. So there's Derek Honer.
Right
his
on,
mustache
fellas.
as well.
Okay, thanks again to all of Team WST. Again, there's a link right here if you're with us on YouTube. If you go to our website, winnipegsports.com, it's there. And there's also a link in the description. We're over $1,000 already. Thank you to everyone that has donated. Nice, up to 1110.
Here we got Chris Nielsen has raised a bunch. Leighton Janis.
Leighton kicking ass, right on.
Yeah, Leighton. So for new, I don't know if this is new for Movember this year, but you can opt to do a physical activity, which is 60 kilometers in a month, which I'm doing, and I'm making my way. What am I? I think I got 14 down so far, so still got a bit to go. But Leighton, man, he's like trying to do 110 kilometers, beat his personal best. So shout out to Leighton Janis.
Awesome, man. The entire team, the fellas looking good. And again, a big part of what we do here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Couldn't do it without them. Thanks to everyone that has donated and everyone that is participating. And if you are available at any level, let's help us get to our goal. We're over halfway there right now. And hey, it'd be great if we can blow that out and take it to the next level. All right. We've gone long, but it's a huge show today. I mean, man, tomorrow, one of the biggest days that we'll remember in Winnipeg for a long time when it comes to the sports fans. But before we get to Saturday, heck, Friday night tonight, quickly, good luck to Grand Park Pirates and Dakota, who are playing in the high school football championship tonight. I'm going to go check that out after the show. Looking forward to that. But it is marbles time, and we can't drop the marbles without Tristan Rivers' music. And hey, big thank you to Nicole J., who just, I think she was so inspired by those stashes by the fellas, just dropped in a $50 donation. So Nicole, thank you very much for supporting WST and the guys and the Movember movement. All right, let's get a little Tristan Rivers going, Remis, and then a marble race to finish off the show.
Sure, I'll pick a good one here. I don't even know which one I'm going to pick. There's just, I think someone asked for the original last year. We haven't done it for a while. We'll do
the original. We'll do Green Day next week because they're playing the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
The killer original version by Tristan Rivers Music. Shout out to Tristan, and check out the Walby song that Tristan fired up for bombing over at the Bonfire channel. Another classic from our guy Tristan Rivers Music. All right, Remo, you can get that sucker ready while you prep the marbles and get all the names in. Let me do a quick an extra why not question of the day today for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. I want to know from everybody in chat, who is going to both games tomorrow? How many of you are going to be at the Jet game against the Stars at 2 and then making the trek to IG Field? I'm doing it. Would not miss it for the world. To live for this sort of stuff in days like tomorrow. So let us know in chat if you're doing both games as well. We need some predictions in the game tomorrow between the Bombers and Lions. Throw your scores into the chat as well. Looking to see everyone in there. Got a tailgate for the Bomber game for Julian. I know that's a lot of folks that are doing that. Oh, and Tikona Pauly with the super chat. Thanks, Tikona Pauly. Giving a shout out to Ray. Go, Ray, go. All right, Remo, let's do this. Where are we going today?
Well, yeah, I got a couple from last week. Well, first we got 247 marbles in here. So let me save it. Marbles, no 10. And let me fire this up. So we had a couple. So last week we did, what's the race do we do? It was Abstract Bonus Academy. These are the dumbest names.
Yeah, that's right.
Abstract Bonus Academy. And I have a couple favorited. Mildly Cosmopolitan Kingdom, My Monster Project, or Favorite of the River. Those are what I have favorite.
Well, you're the master. You're the CTO. You're the marble, the marble decider.
I did them last week. So I'm gonna pick one. I tested them, and I think I'm pretty like strict when it comes for qualifications for the marbles. You have 247 chatters in, so shout out to everyone. If you are here, hey, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Let's get that out of the way here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you got to be subscribed to win, so hit that subscribe button.
Closing in on 10,150 subs.
Nicely done. Oh, it's Spency with the little super chat. Go, Nad, go. Right on, Spency. I love Curtis Perkins' prediction. 3-2 Jets in OT. Bombers 30, Lions 20. Oh, and listen, while you get this ready, we were so busy, we didn't go through all the Coolbet lines. I'll tell you right now, the Bombers are 5-point favorites in the game tomorrow. I don't believe. Oh, now it's down to 4.5. I don't believe we've got Jet lines yet for tomorrow. However, I did put together a special exclusive for you all. If you go down, Remo, in the exclusives, the Winnipeg Sports Talk Parlay, the Super Saturday Special, Jets to win and Bombers minus 4.5. It's in at plus 320 right now. So there you go. We nailed another one last night, plus 575 on the hockey. We have been hot these days. And we've got a bunch for the weekend. We do have a hockey parlay for tonight if you want to ride with us again and see if we can make it 3 in a row. Canes, Leafs, and Flyers all to win tonight. That's at plus 490. Our Lock Shop partner parlay for the weekend boosted to plus 585. The Browns plus 6.5. The Steelers minus 2.5 and the Lions minus 2.5. And then this Cleveland was my favorite pick. I put that one in for the partner parlay. And then we've also got a ride with Huss. My other 3 picks from the Lock Shop, adjusted lines a little bit. Niners minus 2.5, Vikings plus 3.5, and the Jets to win. That is at plus 590. So check out the Lock Shop and the Winnipeg Sports Talks exclusives. And let's face it, we got some bigger numbers on the other ones. But the one I really want to win is the WST parlay with the Jets to win and the Bombers minus 5. Use the promo code WST at Coolbet. If you're making your first deposit, you'll get a 100% bonus up to $200. All right, let's get to it, Remo. Marbles time.
So you missed the joke there on Spency's super chat. He said, "Go Nad, go."
Go Nad, go.
You got that one? I wasn't sure if you got it.
I just did now when you mentioned it. I thought he was just saying
You're
like
Nad.
Dan.
I thought it was a friend named Nad.
I thought he was just Spencying it up and spelling Dan backwards. I wasn't entirely sure. Nice one, Spency. You got me.
Spency. Oh God. Okay, well here, let me put this one down. Let's do this marble race. Okay, 247 marbles in there. Oh, Spency says thing.
Here we go again. So the winner, the winner of today's marble race gets the hoodie, the exclusive, our version of the Masters green jacket. So if you win, you're going to need to send us your contact info and your size. WinnipegSportsTalk@gmail.com. If you finish second or third today, you're also going to need to send us your contact info because these are going to be the first 2 qualifiers for a special marble race we're going to do on the last day of Men's Health Month. And we're going to give away this awesome Trevor Linden autographed jersey from our friends at Prairie Naturals and Vita Health, as well as the full line of Prairie Naturals supplements. So come Monday, we'll begin allowing people to enter online at our website as well as the Instagram page. But today, second and third finishers will get the first 2 marbles for the race at the end of the month. All right, Remis, let's do this. 247 in it. Good vibes with the Jets. The Bombers going into Super Saturday. Good luck to all. I'm looking forward to this. This kind of looks like a pretty cool start.
I think it's a good one. Yeah, shout out to Trevor Linden, autographed jersey, the guy who drafted Elias Paterson. It was
the best line. Everyone in Vancouver, the team's like kicking ass, better than anyone expected, and all anyone's talking about is whether it was Linden or Benning who's responsible. It's only in Vancouver, man. Only in Vancouver. All right, let's drop the marbles. Here we go.
I reviewed this one. This should be a good track.
Jay Gamer's favorite of the river. Excellent start with the sort of Plinko style. Who's going to get down first? Oh, it looks like, is that Ryan Karoluk?
Ryan Kiernicki was in there, but now it's Chucker.
Kiernicki. Chucker in first. Fort Garry O. Adam Wyshynski. Mean Gene Okerlund. Right in the mix. All right, Fort Garry O just got thrown over the top rope after a nice start. Ryan's looking pretty good. Oh, we've got a few more. We've got a few more eliminations. Whoa, a couple guys just got thrown in and got a nice boost. Velveeta, AJH, and Earl James a little ahead of the pack. Here's Adam Wisnowski getting into the spinning globe right now. The big question is who's going to get out of this globe first. We got a big crew. Someone just got tossed. That was, Kim Sawchuk. Sorry about that, Kim. All right, we've got some marbles that are escaping. And now in first place,
Scott Westman.
Scott Westman is in there right now. Let's see if I can see it better on the...
Who's in there? Dylan Webb's in first. FRW, Instant Noodles, Paul Carr.
Oh, I see Paul Carr in there. Paul's had a lot of close calls. FRW and Paul Carr. T. Will after his big pick of the Sharks last night. Okay, we've got these stairs. This is always an interesting one. Okay, T. Will right in the mix. Wouldn't that be something? FRW, T. Will, Paul Carr. Mary Jane's in the mix too. WST chat fan favorite. Mary Jane looking good. Things are slowing down a little bit, but this is a very a long process to get through the up and down stairs. Now everyone is basically tied with each other. This is going to be an incredible finish. You can already see it right now. Anybody's race. Going to get through this tube. And then, is this the finish or is this going to get shot through something? Yes, that is the finish right at the end. Holy smokes. One of the closest races we have ever had in marbles history.
Cosmic Tales MB.
Cosmic Tales MB. Nicely done. And then congratulations to Scott Westman and T. Will. Normally, you'd be kicking yourself at being so close. But again, Scott and T. Will, congratulations. You are the first and second qualifiers for the marble race on November 30th at the end of Men's Health. That's going to be a fun day. We got a Thursday marble race and then game 2 of the WST pack against those Edmonton Oilers. I did text you yesterday, Remis, and said as a disaster as the Oilers are, I'm already nervous about that game, considering what we've seen from the Oilers so far. You know they're going to turn it around at some point, and they're going to be a desperate team for the better part of the entire year. So Cosmic Tales MB, way to go. Look at that. That's 11/1000th of a second. That's how close that was. Wow. That might be the closest race of all time.
It gets tight in there when you get with those alternating steps. So Cosmic Tales separating just a little bit.
Exactly. So Cosmic Tales, send us an email. Let us know what size you are, and we'll set up a pickup for the hoodie next week. And Scott Westman and T. Will, what's up, fellas? Send us an email just with your contact info, and make sure to circle November 30th. Make sure you're with us for a special marble race at the end of Men's Health Month for the great prize from Vita Health and Prairie Naturals. All right, we got lots of predictions in the chat. A lot of excited Bomber and Jet fans tomorrow, Remis. And I got to tell you, we've been talking about this for weeks. I just like to fast forward to tomorrow about noon. Grab a quick bite and then get down for the first of the doubleheader. If you're at the Jet game, say hi. I'm actually in the lower bowl tomorrow. And then all hands on deck. Winnipeg Blue Bomber fans, get ready to bring it. Getting behind the team. And the plan is to have the Bombers join us in Hamilton next week for some Grey Cup festivities Thursday and Friday, heading into the big game on Sunday, dude.
Yeah, we need a Bombers victory because... Man, I started, you know what? I'm not going to even talk about last year's Grey Cup. Bombers, they've been dying to get another crack at the Argos, and we're going to assuming the Argos do win, what a great rematch that would be. So fingers crossed, but another great game Saturday. Everyone in chat excited for the Oilers in Seattle to take on the Kraken. Can they lose again? Sorry. But yeah, big day in Winnipeg sports for sure. Good with stuff. The Jets and Bombers.
Listen, we went long, but let's go raid the Bonfire boys. Bombing and Wiebe are getting ready for the West Final tomorrow. Hang tight with us. If you're still with us on YouTube, we'll fire everyone over there. Go say hi to the fellas. Tell them that the WST raid is on. Enjoy more Bomber coverage from Bombing and Wiebe. They'll be on after tomorrow's Bomber game, and then Kenny and Ren will be going. And my plan is to be here with a big smile on my face on Monday, talking about a trip to the Grey Cup that includes the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Go Blue, go. Go Jets, go tomorrow. Let's make it a super Saturday, and let's cash that WST exclusive while we're at it in the Coolbet exclusives. Bonfire Sports, we're on the way right now. Folks, have a great weekend and enjoy Super Saturday in the Peg with the Jets and Bombers.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.